The call came at 11:18 on a Thursday night, while rain ticked against the metal awning over my kitchen window. Dad? Luke sounded close to me and far away at the same time, like he was speaking from the bottom of a stairwell. I turned off the faucet. What happened? Nothing. A windshield wiper squeaked behind his voice. Can I come over? Of course. A car door opened on his end. Vanessa said something I couldn't make out. Luke's breath caught. I'm sorry, he told her. I know I said I wouldn't call him. There are sentences that don't make sense until your body has already understood them. My hand tightened around the phone. Luke? The sound changed. A rustle, a small grunt. Then Vanessa's voice came through clear and composed. Daniel, this needs to stop. I looked at the dark window over my sink. My own reflection looked startled, which irritated me. Put Luke back on. He is upset, and every time he gets upset, he runs to you. He asked if he could come over. Yes, that is exactly the problem. I heard Luke say her name in the background, not angrily, almost pleading. Vanessa lowered her voice. He's my husband, Daniel. He is not your lonely little project. Then the call went dead. I stood there listening to the rain, wondering how long my son had been apologizing for me. 6 hours earlier, I had been in a hardware store arguing with a college-age clerk about charcoal. Not real arguing, I was retired. Retired men call it having a conversation when we stand in an aisle and explain why an entire industry has lost its standards. This is mostly dust, I told him, squeezing the corner of the bag. The clerk looked down at the black grit leaking onto the floor. That's probably why it's on sale. I respect your honesty. My manager says it's a seasonal promotion. Your manager is a coward. He laughed, and I bought 2 bags. I was planning to grill steaks on Sunday. Luke and I used to do that most weekends when the weather held. I'd handle the meat. He'd bring whatever beer had a label that looked like it was designed by a tattoo artist, and we'd spend half the afternoon pretending the Pirates might turn their season around. Lately, I bought steaks one at a time. I still bought charcoal in pairs. Habit is slower than arithmetic. On my way home, I passed the exit for Luke's neighborhood and noticed traffic backing up near the overpass. My first instinct was to call and tell him to avoid it. I got as far as tapping his name before I remembered the last time I had done that. Vanessa had answered his phone, not accidentally. She said, "Hey Daniel," in the bright voice people use when they already know why you're calling and wish you didn't. I told her about a water main break near their street. We have an app for traffic, she said. I figured Luke might be coming home that way. He is sitting right beside me. Then why didn't he answer his own phone? I almost asked it. Instead, I said, "All right, you two be careful." We always are. That was Vanessa. Nothing she said was quite offensive enough to object to. She could put a thumbtack on your chair and make you feel petty for standing up. I drove home without calling. My house sat on a narrow rise outside Murraysville, a brick ranch with a garage too large for a man who no longer had a work truck. Helen used to say the garage was the only room I had decorated. She was right. The kitchen had beige walls, plain oak cabinets, and one framed photograph Caroline gave me because she said the room looked like a place where hostages were fed. The garage had history. Luke's first crooked birdhouse still hung above the tool chest. The workbench carried a burn mark from the time Caroline tried to make creme brulee with a plumber's torch at 23. There were pennants, dented coffee cans full of bolts, and an old red radio that needed a slap on the side whenever the signal faded. Helen hated that radio. Your marriage would improve by 20% if that thing caught fire, she once told me. Our marriage did not improve when she moved out, but the radio survived. Divorce had made Helen and me kinder to each other. Not close, exactly. We had become 2 people who could finally admit the other one was funny, because neither of us had to sleep beside the joke afterward. She called while I was putting away the charcoal. "Are you alive?" she asked. "That depends who wants to know." "Caroline says you haven't responded about dinner Saturday," I responded. "You sent a thumbs up. That means yes. It means you have a thumb." Caroline was hosting dinner for Helen's 64th birthday. She had invited Luke and Vanessa too, although invited was not the right word for how Caroline handled family events. She issued calendar notices with deadlines. "I'll be there," I said. "Good. And don't bring a grocery store cake." I wasn't planning to. You always say that. Then you arrive with a grocery store cake. They have a bakery. They have an area where cake is stored. I leaned against the workbench. "Do you know if Luke's coming?" A pause, small but noticeable. He said they were. Luke said, or Vanessa said, Daniel. It was a question. It was a question wearing a little hat. I rubbed at a spot of black dust on my palm. I haven't heard from him. He's busy. So is the president. I assume somebody hears from him. You're doing that thing. What thing? The thing where you make a joke and leave it sitting there until somebody else says what you actually mean. I looked at Luke's birdhouse. The hole was off-center and too small for any bird native to Pennsylvania. When he was 9, he had insisted it was for a special kind. I'm not doing anything, I said. Exactly. Helen wished me a pleasant evening in the tone of a woman recommending dental surgery and hung up. That was at 6:15. At 7, I heated a bowl of chili and ate it standing at the counter. At 7:30, I watched half an episode of a home renovation show and became so irritated by a man removing perfectly good cabinets that I turned it off. At 8, I went into the garage and tuned the radio to the game. The Pirates were losing by 3 in the second inning. Some things can be counted on. I took out my phone once. There was an old message from Luke 9 days earlier. Need to reschedule Sunday. V made plans with the Harrisons. Next week, I had replied, sure thing. The week before that, Vanessa's cousin had been visiting. Before that, Luke had a headache. Before that, he and Vanessa had gone to look at patio furniture, which seemed like an activity that should take 40 minutes, but apparently required the entire day and emotional preparation on Saturday. I had stopped asking. That sounds dignified when I say it now. It wasn't dignity. It was pride with better posture. At 9:40, Caroline texted me a photograph of a cake shaped like an open book. Mom suggested this. Please explain to her that she is turning 64, not graduating from wizard school. I wrote back, get the cake. Traitor, she replied. At 10, the rain started. At 10:30, it was coming down hard enough to blur the yard light. I checked the basement window wells, locked the back door, and went to bed with a paperback I had been reading for 6 months. Then Luke called. After Vanessa hung up, I dialed him back immediately. It rang once and went to voicemail. You've reached Luke. Leave a message. I didn't. I called again. Straight to voicemail. The third time, I stopped with my thumb over his name. I could hear Helen telling me I solved things because I didn't know how to sit still beside them. That was one of her favorite explanations for our marriage. My version was that sitting still had never repaired a blown transformer, a leaking roof, or a flat tire on the side of Route 22. But Luke wasn't a transformer. I set the phone on the counter, picked it up again, walked into the living room with it, walked back. At 11:27, a message appeared. He's fine. We are going home. Please give us some space. It came from Vanessa's number. I read it twice, then typed, let me hear that from him. The dots appeared almost at once. This is between my husband and me. I wrote, he called me, deleted it. I wrote, he is also my son, deleted that too. The rain hammered the awning. I pictured Luke sitting in the passenger seat while Vanessa drove, or sitting behind the wheel while she held his phone. I pictured him embarrassed, angry, relieved that somebody had stopped the conversation for him. Every version I imagined made me reach for my truck keys. They hung on a hook beside the basement door. I took them down. Luke and Vanessa lived 26 minutes away in good weather. I could be there in 35. I could stand on their porch and make Luke look me in the eye. I could tell Vanessa that nobody decided whether my son was allowed to call me. And then what? Luke would be forced to choose a side before he had even managed to finish whatever sentence made him call. Vanessa would say I had proved her point. Luke would calm me down because that was what he did when two people he loved refused to control themselves. I put the keys back. That might have been the hardest useful thing I had done all year. I made coffee I didn't need and sat at the kitchen table. At midnight, a silver sedan slowed in front of my house. I stood so fast my knee struck the underside of the table. The car kept going. By 1, the rain had softened. By 2, I had inspected every memory I possessed of Vanessa and found a way to make it evidence. The first time Luke brought her to dinner, she had washed the dishes and reorganized the utensils without asking. I had thought she was being helpful. At their wedding, she had danced with me after Luke danced with Helen. She told me she was grateful Luke had a father who always showed up. When their furnace quit during their first winter in the house, she called me before Luke did. I spent 6 hours there, found a cracked igniter, drove across town for the part, and stayed until warm air came through the vents. Vanessa hugged me and said, What would we do without you? I had liked that more than I should have. There were other memories too. Luke asking me not to mention that he had complained about Vanessa's spending. Luke telling me he couldn't come for coffee because they had argued, then changing it to, "We're tired." Vanessa joking at Christmas that she had married both of us, but only one helped with laundry. Me laughing. Me always laughing. At 2:14, I opened a message to Luke and wrote 3 paragraphs. I told him I was his father, that no marriage should require permission to make a phone call, and that I was coming over in the morning, whether Vanessa liked it or not. I read it once. Then I deleted every word. What I finally sent was shorter. "You never have to apologize for calling me, but I won't help you hide calls from your wife, and I won't make choices for you. My door is open when you can walk through it honestly." I watched the screen until it dimmed. The message showed as delivered, not read. I left the phone on the table and went into the garage. The air still smelled faintly of charcoal dust. I switched on the old red radio, but all I got was static. I slapped the side. A voice burst through in the middle of an advertisement for replacement windows. I laughed once, though nothing was funny. Then I noticed the second steak in my freezer through the open door to the mudroom, wrapped in white paper and marked with Sunday's date. For the first time, I wondered whether Luke had been staying away from me, or whether he had been trying, and failing, to get permission to come back. I never heard the garage door open behind me. "Planning to run the engine in here?" I turned. Caroline stood in the doorway from the mudroom, holding 2 paper cups and wearing the black raincoat she used for work. "You knock now?" I asked. I did, then I called. "Then I used the key you gave me for emergencies. This isn't an emergency. You're sitting in a dark garage at 6:30 in the morning, listening to an ad about gutters." I looked at the window. The sky had gone from black to the color of dirty aluminum without asking my permission. Caroline set 1 cup on the bench. "I brought coffee." "You broke into my house. I brought good coffee. That changes the charge." She was 39 and had inherited Helen's ability to look organized while committing an offense. Caroline coordinated events for a hotel near downtown Pittsburgh, which meant she could arrange a banquet for 400 people, but regarded being 6 minutes late to lunch as a moral collapse. She studied me over the lid of her cup. "What?" "You're dressed. I often am. In yesterday's clothes." I looked down. Same jeans, same flannel shirt. A black smear from the charcoal bag crossed 1 cuff. "I fell asleep out here." "No, you didn't." "Then why ask?" "Because normal people volunteer information when confronted with evidence. Television has misled you." She sat on Luke's old stool and crossed 1 ankle over the other. "Did Mom call you?" "Last night." "Did you say something to her?" I spoke. That's generally how calls work. She called me afterward and said, "You were being weird." Your mother has called me weird since 1987. She used the word off. I picked up the coffee. It was too hot, expensive, and flavored with something that did not occur in nature. "I'm fine." Caroline kept looking at me. I had no objection to telling her the truth, except that it would stop being mine the second I did. She would call Luke before reaching the end of my driveway. Then she would call Vanessa. Then Helen would get involved, and by noon, my private confusion would have assigned seating. "Couldn't sleep," I said. "That's it? That's plenty." She watched me another moment, then nodded as if accepting a bid she considered suspiciously low. "Please shower before tomorrow night." I was planning to come straight from the garage. Dad. Caroline. "And don't say anything about Mom's age. She says she doesn't care, which means she has prepared responses. She's 64, not 90, I know. She ordered a book-shaped cake. You ordered the cake. Under coercion." Caroline stood, kissed my cheek, and stopped at the mudroom door. "If this is about Luke, don't corner him tomorrow." I held the cup halfway to my mouth. She saw it. "Why would you say that?" "Because it's usually about Luke." "What does that mean?" "It means if he misses coffee, you act like the steel mill's closed. Steel mills employed people. You know, when you get defensive, you sound even more like Mom." That was low enough that I respected it. She left before I could answer. Luke's message showed as read at 7:06. No reply came. I showered, changed, and tried to perform a normal Friday. I went to the bank, bought Helen a bottle of rye she liked, and stood in the greeting card aisle long enough to learn that card companies believed divorced people either hated each other or were secretly waiting to reconcile. I chose a blank card. At home, I took a package of ground beef from the freezer. The steaks stayed where they were. Every time a vehicle slowed outside, I looked up. At 4:20, Luke finally texted, "I'm okay. Sorry about last night." I stared at those 6 words. Sorry for what? Calling me, frightening me, letting Vanessa take the phone, failing to show up. He had built himself a sentence with no visible exits. I typed, "You don't owe me an apology," then added, "Do you want to talk?" The reply came after 9 minutes. "Not right now. See you tomorrow at Mom's." I wrote, "All right." It looked cold, so I added a period. That made it look colder. I removed the period, then sent it. There are humiliations specific to fatherhood. Adjusting punctuation so your adult son won't mistake your fear for anger is one of them. Helen's dinner was at Caroline's apartment in Shadyside. She lived on the 3rd floor of a renovated brick building with polished concrete halls and a lobby that smelled like somebody had sliced a lemon in a bank. I arrived at 5:40 for a 6:30 dinner. Caroline opened the door, looked past me, and said, "Did you bring folding chairs? You asked me to." I did, didn't I? 4 times. She took the bottle of rye. "This is nice. Put it in a bag so your mother thinks it came that way." The apartment had already been rearranged for the evening. A long table occupied most of the living room, laid with cloth napkins and low glass candles. The book-shaped cake sat on the kitchen counter. In white icing, it said, Chapter 64. "It looks like a tombstone," I said. Caroline glanced at it. "Thank you. That's exactly what I needed to see." Helen arrived 10 minutes later, wearing a dark green blouse and earrings I did not recognize. She had cut her hair shorter since I last saw her, or maybe I was only noticing because she had accused me for 28 years of not noticing haircuts. "You cut your hair," I said, 3 months ago. "Still counts." She kissed my cheek and took the gift bag. "You bought alcohol? I bought quality alcohol. You were always better at selecting liquor than cards. It's blank inside." I didn't want a stranger writing our history. That softened her for half a second. Then she opened the card and said, "You wrote, 'Happy birthday, Helen.'" I didn't want me writing our history either. By 6:30, Caroline's friends Marcy and Joel had arrived, along with Helen's neighbor Ruth and Ruth's partner, Dean. Everyone was over 40, and everyone had brought wine, which made the bottle I bought look less like a thoughtful gift and more like admission to a meeting. Luke and Vanessa were late. At 6:41, Caroline checked her phone. They're parking. I moved one of the candles a 1/4 inch to the left. Helen watched my hand. "Don't. I'm centering it." "You're trying to control wax." The buzzer sounded. Vanessa entered first with a bouquet of white roses and a box from a bakery that Caroline pretended not to notice. She wore cream-colored trousers that would have become dirty if I stood too close to them. Her smile found the room before Luke did. "Happy birthday," she called. Helen hugged her. Caroline took the flowers. Everybody spoke at once. Luke stepped in behind her, carrying a paper bag with a wine bottle inside. He looked exactly like himself. That disturbed me more than if he had arrived with blood on his shirt. His hair was still damp from a shower. He wore the navy sweater Helen had given him at Christmas and the brown boots I once helped him to resole. He shook rain from his shoulders, saw me, and paused. "Hey, Dad. Hey." Vanessa turned toward us. Just turned, nothing more. Luke kissed Helen, handed Caroline the wine, and asked if she needed help. I wanted to grab his face like a child's and inspect it for damage. Instead, I opened a beer. Dinner began with soup Caroline had made from roasted squash. Joel told a story about getting trapped in a hotel elevator with a wedding party. Ruth complained about a neighbor's motion-sensitive light. Vanessa described a restaurant downtown where the portions were conceptual. Luke laughed in the right places. I watched him use his spoon. Once, he looked at me and caught me watching. He raised his eyebrows. I lowered mine. Vanessa sat between us. I didn't know if that was deliberate, and I hated that I had begun assigning strategy to chairs. "Daniel," she said, "Luke told me you bought enough charcoal to survive a blockade." I looked at him. He stared into his soup. "2 bags," I said. "See?" She smiled around the table. "He can't do anything in moderation." Helen took a drink of wine. I said, "It was on sale. The emergency reserves are secure," Luke said. Everybody laughed. His voice sounded normal, almost too normal, but perhaps normal had become an accusation I was manufacturing because I wanted someone else to notice what I had heard. During the main course, Vanessa talked about friends of hers who had moved to North Carolina. "They sent us pictures this morning," she said. "It was 72 degrees. "Don't trust photographs," Dean said. "North Carolina has mosquitoes that can carry off a lawn chair." Vanessa laughed. Still, sometimes I wonder why we're all committed to suffering through February. Luke cut his chicken. You'd melt below Virginia, I told him. He glanced up. Probably. Vanessa rested a hand on his forearm. People adapt. There was nothing in the exchange. A joke about weather, a wife touching her husband. Still, Luke's knife stopped moving until her hand lifted. After dinner, Helen opened gifts. The bakery box Vanessa brought contained 6 elaborate pastries decorated like flowers. Caroline served them beside the cake she had ordered, creating a dessert table for a party twice our size. Vanessa photographed everything. She had a gift for making ordinary evenings look expensive. When Luke carried plates into the kitchen, I followed with empty glasses. I can get those, he said. I know. He placed the plates beside the sink. I set down the glasses. For a moment, neither of us moved. The living room conversation covered us with noise. What happened last night? I asked. His shoulders tightened. I told you I'm fine. That isn't what I asked. He turned on the faucet. Vanessa and I had an argument. I went for a drive. It got stupid. What got stupid? The argument. You were outside a pharmacy. His eyes lifted to mine. How do you know that? I heard the sign announcement through the phone. You know, the one advertising flu shots every 30 seconds. He looked toward the living room. Were you sick? No. Then why were you there? It was open. That's generally how parking lots work. Dad, I lowered my voice. You asked to come over. I shouldn't have. The exact words were quiet enough that I nearly missed them. Before I could answer, Vanessa appeared in the kitchen doorway with a stack of napkins. There you are. Luke stepped away from the sink. She looked from him to me, then smiled. Am I interrupting? Yes, I said. Luke said, no. The answers landed together. Vanessa began folding the napkins, although they were dirty and going directly into Caroline's laundry hamper. Daniel, could I talk to you for a second? Luke turned off the water. Privately, she added. He dried his hands on his pants. I'll check if Caroline needs anything. He left without looking at me. Vanessa waited until he had crossed the living room. You said you would give us space. I didn't say that. You did. Her smile disappeared, not dramatically. It simply ended its shift. Luke feels guilty when you're disappointed. Luke feels guilty when it rains. And you know that about him. You know exactly how to make silence feel like punishment. I thought about the steaks in my freezer. I asked what happened. He told you he's fine. He also asked to come to my house. Because we were arguing and he wanted someone to tell him he was right. Was he? She gave a short laugh. That is what you care about? What I care about is why a 37-year-old man had to apologize for calling his father. Something flickered in her face. Anger, yes, but underneath it was exhaustion. You hear one sentence, she said, and suddenly you think you understand our marriage. No. I heard one sentence and realized I don't. Her grip tightened around the napkins. Behind us, Caroline called for more forks. Vanessa stepped closer. Luke and I made an agreement. When we have a conflict, he stays in it. He doesn't leave, call you, come back with your opinion in his mouth, and make me argue with both of you. I didn't give him an opinion, not last night. The words were precise, prepared. How often has he called me during an argument? I asked. She looked almost surprised. Then she said, you should ask yourself how often he wanted to. Caroline entered the kitchen carrying 2 plates and stopped. Oh, she said, this looks festive. Vanessa smiled immediately. Your father and I were discussing Sunday dinner. We were? She looked straight at me. We're having some friends over for our anniversary in 2 weeks, she said. We could use Daniel's help getting the house ready. Caroline brightened. That's nice. Luke stood across the room beside Helen, watching us. Vanessa touched my arm as she passed. Assuming you're willing to give us the right kind of support. I did not answer. For the first time all evening, Luke looked directly at me. Then, so slightly no one else could have seen it, he shook his head. I looked at Vanessa. Sunday dinner, I said. That's what we were discussing? Her expression did not move. Among other things. Luke gave another small shake of his head. Whether he meant, don't agree, don't argue, or don't make this worse, I couldn't tell. That was the problem with a man who had trained himself to communicate in fractions. Caroline needs forks, I said. I opened the drawer beside the sink. Other one, Caroline told me. I knew that. You've been in my kitchen 40 times. You keep moving things. I have never moved the forks. That's what someone who moves forks would say. The joke gave everyone permission to breathe. Caroline rolled her eyes, Vanessa carried the napkins out, and Luke turned toward Helen before I could catch him alone again. I stayed beside the silverware drawer longer than necessary. By 8:30, people began making the elaborate promises adults make when leaving a dinner party. We absolutely have to do this again. We'll pick a date. Come to our place next time. No one selected a date or offered their place. I folded the rented chairs and carried them to my truck. Luke appeared on the sidewalk as I was lowering the tailgate. The rain had stopped, but water still dripped from the building's stone ledges. "You need a hand?" he asked. "I have it." He took the other end of the chair stack anyway. We slid it into the bed. "You could have said something," I told him. "About what? Are we doing this again?" He shoved the chairs farther in. "I told you I was okay. After I spent half the night wondering if you were. I didn't ask you to do that. No, you asked to come over. Then your wife took your phone." He flinched at wife, although I had not said it with any special force. She was upset. So were you. It was a bad night. What was the argument about? He looked back at the apartment building. Several lit windows faced us, all identical from the street. "It doesn't matter. It mattered at 11:18. "Dad, please." That word stopped me. Not because it was respectful, because it sounded tired. "All right," I said. He put both hands in his coat pockets. "You can't come in like this. I'm standing beside my own truck. You know what I mean. You ask questions until I either tell you what you want or feel like I'm lying. You are lying. I said I'm fine. That's the lie." His jaw tightened. Behind us, the building door opened. Helen came out carrying the book-shaped cake in a plastic carrier. Caroline followed with a bag of gifts. Luke stepped away from the truck. "I have to go." "Luke." He turned. "You don't need permission to call me." His face changed. Not much, but enough. Then Vanessa appeared in the doorway behind Helen. Luke said, "Good night, Dad," and walked back toward her. Helen reached my truck and handed me the cake. "What am I doing with this?" "Caroline says it looks like a tombstone now. It always looked like a tombstone." "Yes, but you said it, so now it's true." Caroline set the gifts on the rear floor of Helen's car. "Dad, your chairs. In the truck. You brought 6. You asked for 4. I know. I'm complimenting your ability to count beyond the assignment." Luke and Vanessa crossed the sidewalk. Vanessa called good night. Luke lifted one hand without looking back. Helen watched them drive away. Then she turned to me. "What happened in the kitchen? Vanessa wants help with their anniversary dinner. That was not an anniversary expression. You recognize those?" "I was married to you." Caroline locked the building door behind us. They were talking about Luke. I looked at her. She shrugged. "I have ears." "Then why ask?" "I didn't. Mom did." Helen shifted the cake carrier into my hands. "Daniel." "This isn't the parking lot for it." "Then where is?" "Nowhere. There's nothing to tell." Caroline's eyebrows rose. "That's convincing." I carried the cake to my cab and set it on the passenger floor. Helen followed. "If you are angry with Luke, don't make him guess why." "I'm not angry with Luke." "Fine. If you're hurt, don't dress it up as anger and make him guess twice." "I am not discussing this between a dumpster and a Subaru." "That's my car," Caroline said. "The point stands." I closed the truck door harder than I intended. Helen did not react. That was worse than if she had. "Thank you for the whiskey," she said, "and the card. It was aggressively adequate. Happy birthday." She kissed my cheek. Caroline waited until Helen was in her car, then said, "You know I'll find out eventually. That sounds like a threat. It's a family promise." She hugged me and went inside. The cake slid every time I turned on the drive home. By the third red light, half the word chapter had pressed against the plastic lid. I ate a corner piece in my kitchen at 10:30. The icing was too sweet, the cake was dry, and Helen had been right about grocery store bakeries having only a cake storage area. Sunday arrived warm and bright, the sort of day I had imagined when I bought the charcoal. At 11, I took both steaks out of the freezer. At 11:15, I put one back. Luke had not said he was coming. I knew that. Still, some stupid part of me expected to hear his car in the driveway, because routine is a form of superstition. I lit the grill around 4. The cheap charcoal smoked like wet newspaper. "Coward," I said, thinking of the hardware store manager. I ate on the back step with the radio playing through the garage. The steak was good, better than the circumstances deserved. At 5:20, my phone rang. I checked it too quickly. Helen. You sound disappointed, she said. I said hello. You said it with expectations. What do you need? I'm calling to thank you for the leftover cake. I have most of it. Yes. That's what I'm thanking you for? I looked at the empty chair beside me. You're welcome. Did Luke come over? No. Was he supposed to? No. Did you invite him? No. She let the silence sit there. I hated when she used my own equipment. Daniel, are you waiting for him to prove something? I'm eating dinner. That was not my question. I'm not in the mood for an examination. Then call it concern. You're very concerned for somebody who spent last night telling me not to corner him. I told you not to corner him in Caroline's kitchen. There were pastries present. I rubbed my thumb along a nick in the step. He'll talk when he wants to, I said, and if he doesn't, then he doesn't. That's not restraint. That's a threat you're making alone in your yard. I stood. Good night, Helen. Daniel, I hung up. 2 minutes later, she texted, I had a nice birthday. I wrote, good. Then, because apparently punctuation now controlled my family, I added, I'm glad. Vanessa's invitation arrived Tuesday morning as a group message addressed to me, Helen, and Caroline. 4 years. We'd love to celebrate with the people who helped us build this life. Below that was a picture of Vanessa and Luke standing in front of a lake, taken close enough that their faces filled the frame. Luke wore sunglasses. Vanessa was kissing his cheek. The dinner would be Saturday evening, 11 days away. Dressy casual, no gifts. Please respond by Friday, Helen replied with a heart. Caroline wrote, wouldn't miss it. I left the message unanswered. That afternoon, Vanessa sent me a separate text. We would especially love to have you there. I looked at the words for a while. Thank you, I wrote. 3 dots appeared. Luke mentioned you may be willing to help with a few things around the house before the dinner. The porch rail is loose again, and we'll need to bring the folding tables up from storage. Nothing major. I did not remember offering. I typed, have Luke call me. The dots did not return. Luke called at 8:15 that night. Hey, I got your message. I sent it to Vanessa. She showed me. Of course she had. I sat at the kitchen table. Do you want my help? What? Not Vanessa. You. He sighed. It's our anniversary. I know what it is. It would mean a lot if things could just be normal. Normal for whom? There was a long pause. This is what she means, he said. I leaned back. What does she mean? Everything has to become a whole conversation with you. You called to ask me for help. I'm asking what help means. The railing, some tables. I don't know. You're good at that stuff. That stuff. You know what I mean. I did. That was part of the trouble. What time? Dad. What time do you need me? His relief came through the phone so clearly it was almost a third voice. Maybe 10? Vanessa's making brunch. I'll eat before I come. She's trying. So am I. He became quiet. I could have stopped there. Instead, I said, Did you want me to come get you Thursday night? I heard him inhale. I wanted the argument to stop. That isn't the same answer. It's the only one I have. Did you want to come here? I don't know. You knew when you called. No, I knew I wanted out of the car. That was the first honest thing he had said about that night. What were you arguing about? He gave a small, humorless laugh. You. I stared at the dark window over the sink. How did I get into the car? You called earlier. I called about the water main. I know, Vanessa answered. I know that too. I waited. She thinks I use you, he said. For what? To avoid dealing with things. And what do you think? I think sometimes you make it easy. That landed cleanly. I looked at my hands on the table. The knuckles were marked with old white scars, each one attached to work I could name. Then, why ask me to come Saturday? Because this is what I'm talking about. There's always a test. I'm trying to understand the rules. There aren't rules. You apologize for calling me. Keep your voice down. I had not raised it. The realization cooled something in me. Is she there? She's in the other room. And you don't want her to hear you talking to me. I called you, didn't I? The defense sounded borrowed. Yes, I said. You did. Can we please just get through the anniversary? The phrase sat between us. Not enjoy, not celebrate. Get through. I told him I would be there at 10. When we hung up, I went into the garage and checked the level, drill batteries, socket set, and spare screws. I put everything I might need into the canvas tool bag Luke gave me for Father's Day 3 years earlier. Then I took it all back out. A loose railing required a wrench and possibly a screwdriver. I had packed as if I were rebuilding the house. Saturday morning, I arrived at 9:58. Luke's car was in the driveway. Vanessa's was gone. The front door opened before I reached it. Luke stood there in work clothes, holding a roll of blue painter's tape. "You're early," he said, "by 2 minutes." He looked over my shoulder at the truck, then at the wrench in my hand. "That all you brought?" "You said the railing." He opened the door wider. On the refrigerator behind him, a sheet of paper had been secured at all 4 corners with blue tape. At the top, in Vanessa's neat block letters, she had written, "Daniel." Underneath, she had numbered 9 jobs. Tighten porch rail. Carry folding tables from basement. Move dining table to living room. Install 2 shelves in downstairs bathroom. Replace burned-out bulb over patio. Touch up paint near stairwell. Bring beverage tubs from garage. Pick up 6 bags of ice at 4. Please be finished by 4:30, so catering can set up. At the bottom, she had added a smiley face. I read the list twice. Luke rubbed the side of his nose. She likes to write things down. So did Moses. His list was shorter. It's mostly little stuff. Shelves aren't little if you don't have anchors. We have anchors. What size? He looked at the floor. We have some. I held up the wrench. You asked about a railing. I didn't know about the shelves. You live here? I don't review the refrigerator before bed. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and coffee. 2 stacks of white plates sat on the kitchen counter beside a bundle of cloth napkins. Flowers covered half the dining table, still wrapped in cloudy plastic. "Where's Vanessa?" I asked, picking up the centerpieces. She said she was making brunch. She ran behind. "There's a surprise." He looked at me. I could have left the sentence alone. Instead, I added, "I ate. Good." That single word carried enough irritation to furnish the room. I went back to the truck and retrieved my tool bag. "You brought more," Luke said when I returned. "I keep things in the truck." "You said that was all you brought." I lied. He smiled despite himself. For a second, there he was. We started with the porch rail. One of the bottom bolts had worked loose from the concrete. Luke held the post steady while I removed it. "You need a new sleeve anchor," I said. "Is that one of the anchors we have?" "No." "Then I'm glad Moses came prepared." I looked up at him. He was grinning. "You're getting old enough to tighten this yourself." I was emotionally neglected in the area of masonry fasteners. "I gave you a socket set. You gave me a socket set and told me not to touch anything until you arrived. That was good advice. You stripped 3 lug nuts changing a tire. That happened once. It happened to 3 lug nuts." We worked without discussing Thursday night, and I understood why he had called me. Not for agreement, not even for rescue. He had called because with me, silence did not mean somebody was gathering evidence. When the post was stable, Luke rocked it with both hands. "Solid, not yet. I have to cap the bolt. It feels solid. That is how people lose teeth." He let go. Inside, we carried the folding tables up from the basement. Vanessa had stored them behind 6 plastic tubs labeled by season. To reach the tables, we had to move autumn, winter, winter formal, and something called transitional. "What happens during transitional?" I asked. "Decorative uncertainty." A laugh escaped him before he could stop it. I stacked the tubs beside the washing machine. "Remember when your mother's holiday decorations fit in 1 box? No, neither do I." The basement door opened. Vanessa stood at the top of the stairs, framed by the kitchen light. "I thought you were starting outside." Luke's face changed so quickly I might have imagined the version before it. "The rail's almost done," he said. "Almost? I need to cap the anchor," I said. She looked at the tables propped against the wall. "Those are going in the living room. We're getting there." "I know. I'm just saying where they go." Behind her, the front door opened and closed. Something scraped across the floor. "The florist is here," she told Luke. "Can you help her?" He looked at me. "Go," I said. Vanessa stepped aside to let him pass. As soon as he was gone, she came down 3 steps. "Thank you for coming." The words sounded genuine enough to make me suspicious of my suspicion. He asked me. "I know. I thought I was invited tonight, too." "You are. The list says I'm finished at 4:30. The setup needs to be finished. I thought that was obvious." "It says Daniel." I put your name there so Luke wouldn't start doing everything out of order. Does Luke often start installing shelves when he means to buy ice? She closed her eyes briefly. Please don't do this today. Do what? Make every word a contest. I brought a wrench. I walked into a list. And somehow the list wounded you. I picked up one end of a table. It surprised me. You like helping. I like being asked. We did ask. You asked about a railing. She stared at me, then gave a quick little nod, as if revising an estimate. You're right. I should have been clearer. That should have ended it. An apology, plain enough to accept. But then she said, I didn't realize kindness required such exact wording. I carried the table upstairs without answering. The florist was a woman named Gina who seemed to know Vanessa well. She had brought arrangements in low white bowls and kept asking where we wanted them, although only Vanessa answered. Luke and I unfolded the tables in the living room. Every time we began talking, Vanessa found something for him to do elsewhere. Luke, could you check the patio? Luke, Gina needs scissors. Luke, can you call the caterer? Luke, those glasses need rinsed. None of the requests was unreasonable. That was the genius of them. At noon, Vanessa set out sandwiches from a cafe. Gina ate one, standing over the flowers. Luke took half a turkey wrap and leaned against the counter beside me. Vanessa looked over. Honey, could you bring the beverage tubs in? He's eating, I said. Luke put the wrap down. It's fine. He can finish chewing. Dad, he said it quietly, with warning. Vanessa folded the cafe receipt into smaller and smaller squares. Luke doesn't need you to manage his lunch. No, he has you. Gina became intensely interested in a hydrangea. Luke pushed away from the counter. I'll get the tubs. I'll help, I said. No. The word came out sharper than he intended. We all looked at him. He lowered his voice. Just finish eating. He walked through the mudroom. Vanessa picked up the receipt square and threw it away. Gina, can you see whether the flowers need more water? The florist took her sandwich and escaped to the living room. Vanessa waited until we were alone. You lasted 2 hours. I've been working for 2 hours. You've been making comments for 2 hours. I made one comment. You make them with your face too. I only have the one face. And Luke reads it like scripture. I put my sandwich down. You keep sending him out of the room because things need to get done. He wanted me here. So did I. As what? Her mouth tightened. There it was. The question neither of us wanted answered. Luke returned carrying 2 galvanized tubs stacked together. Where do you want these? Patio, Vanessa said. He headed toward the back door. I'll take them, I told him. I have them. I need to talk to you. Vanessa's shoulders went still. Luke kept moving. Later. Now would be better. He set the tubs down hard enough to make them ring. Why? Because every time we're alone, you get called away. Vanessa gave a short laugh. That is ridiculous. Luke looked between us. Can we not? I want 5 minutes with my son. And I'm asking you to wait, Vanessa said. I turned to her. I wasn't asking you. The front door opened. Gina walked in from the porch with an empty flower box. Vanessa smiled at her. We're good. Gina looked at the 3 of us. Absolutely. She backed out again. Luke rubbed both hands over his face. Dad, please finish the railing. There it was again. Not enjoy the day, not stay. Finish the railing. I looked toward the refrigerator, where my name sat above the list in black marker. What time should I come back? I asked. For what? Vanessa said. The dinner. She glanced at Luke. He looked away. Something cold moved through me. What? I asked. Vanessa stepped toward the counter. We were going to discuss that. We? After Saturday at Caroline's, Luke and I thought tonight might be uncomfortable. Luke stared at the floor. You invited Helen and Caroline. They're coming at 6. And me? We thought you might prefer to celebrate with us another time. I looked at Luke. Did you think that? He took too long. I thought maybe some space would help. Then why am I here? You said you'd help, Vanessa answered. I kept my eyes on my son. Why am I here? He looked miserable. And for 1 weak second, that almost became enough for me. I didn't know she was going to uninvite you, he said. Vanessa turned. We talked about this. You said you were thinking about it, and you agreed it might be better. I said I didn't want a scene. She gave him a look that shut down whatever came next. I picked up my tool bag. The shelves aren't installed, Vanessa said. I know, And the porch rail is still missing the cap. I know that too. You're leaving? I came because Luke asked me to help get ready for a dinner I was invited to. Apparently that dinner doesn't exist. This is exactly the kind of punishment I was talking about. No, a punishment would be loosening what I already fixed. Dad, Luke said. I turned to him. Come to my house when you want to talk. Vanessa crossed her arms. There it is. What? The offer? The secret door. You make yourself available whenever he wants to avoid me. I'm not asking him to avoid you. You are asking him to choose. I am asking him to speak. You don't think he speaks because you don't like what he says. Luke moved between us, not physically separating us, just standing where we both had to see him. I want you to stay and finish, he said. The sentence hit harder than Vanessa's uninvitation. Do you want me at the dinner? He swallowed. I want tonight to go well. It was an answer, just not to my question. I lifted the tool bag. Vanessa's voice followed me toward the door. If you walk out now, do not tell people we excluded you. I stopped with my hand on the knob. I won't have to tell anyone anything. There's an empty chair with my name on it. There isn't an empty chair, she said. We adjusted the count. I looked back. Luke flinched before I did. That was the moment I understood the decision had not been made that morning. They had removed my chair before they asked me to repair the railing. I left. In the truck, my phone buzzed before I reached the end of their street. Caroline had sent a photograph of 3 dresses laid across her bed. Which one says supportive sister without saying free champagne? I stared at the picture. Then another message arrived. Also, are you wearing the blue shirt tonight or the other blue shirt? I set the phone face down. At home, I put the tool bag on the garage bench and found the railing cap in the side pocket. I must have slipped it there while we worked. For 10 minutes, I stood with that small piece of metal in my palm, trying to decide whether returning it would make me decent or merely available. Then the old red radio crackled behind me. Someone knocked at the front door. I closed my fingers around the railing cap and went inside. Luke stood on the porch. He had changed into gray slacks and a white shirt. His hair was combed, his shoes polished, and there was a pale line of dust across one sleeve where he must have brushed against the tables. You left this, I said. I held out the cap. He looked at it. I didn't come for that. What did you come for? Can I come in? I stepped aside. He entered but did not remove his shoes. That told me he had no intention of staying. What happened after I left? I asked. Vanessa cried. The answer was designed to place something heavy in my hands. I set the cap on the kitchen counter. I'm sorry she's hurt. She's been planning this for months. She planned it without a chair for me. That wasn't decided months ago. No, just before I arrived to work. Luke looked around the kitchen as if hoping another conversation might be available. She wants you to come tonight, he said. Does she? Yes. Did she send you to tell me? We talked. Did she send you? He exhaled through his nose. Why does it matter? Because I'm trying to figure out whether my son wants me at his anniversary or whether his wife wants to prevent questions when my sister and daughter arrive. Caroline is my sister. I know who Caroline is. Then stop talking like everybody belongs to you. I felt that one in my chest. Luke saw it and looked away. I went to the cabinet, took down a glass, and filled it with water. My hand was steady, which gave me something useless to be proud of. What time? I asked. He blinked. What? If you want me there, what time should I come? 6. And if Vanessa tells me when I arrive that I'm making her uncomfortable, she won't. You're sure? He hesitated. I drank the water. Dad, we're trying to fix this, are we? Yes. You drove here in your anniversary clothes to tell me your wife cried, then said, one thing you knew would hurt me. I apologized. When? His mouth opened. Thursday night? You apologized to her for calling me. Friday, you apologized to me for Thursday, although you wouldn't say what for. Today, you want me to walk back into the house where you just told me I wasn't wanted. I said we changed our minds. You said Vanessa wants me there? She does. What do you want? He turned toward the front window. I want one night where nobody asks me that. The room went quiet. Outside, a delivery truck stopped at the neighbor's house. The driver carried a long cardboard box up their walk, rang the bell, and left it leaning against the wrong side of the door. I know you think it's a simple question, Luke said. It ought to be. It's simple for you because there's never a wrong answer in this house. That doesn't make sense. Yes, it does. You ask what I want. And if I tell you something you don't like, you go quiet. You don't yell. You don't tell me I'm wrong. You just get very calm and make me hear how disappointed you are. I set the glass down. I can't help having a face. That's what Vanessa says too. Then you have a type. He gave me a look that contained the beginning of a laugh and the end of his patience. I'm asking you to come. Because you want me there? Because I don't want this to become the story of our anniversary. It already is. No. Right now it's a bad morning. If you stay home, Caroline will ask questions. Mom will know something's wrong. Vanessa will spend the whole night pretending she's fine, and I'll have to. He stopped. Have to what? Manage it. The word hung between us. Is that what your marriage is? I asked. Management? His expression hardened. There. That. You take one word and build a whole case. I'm not building a case. You always are. You remember every cancellation, every time we're late, every Sunday I don't come over. I don't mention them. You don't have to. I looked toward the mudroom. Through the open doorway, I could see the garage bench and the canvas tool bag I had packed too carefully. You're right, I said. The anger went out of his face, replaced by suspicion. I do remember. I wait for you, and then I act like I didn't. Maybe you feel that even when I keep my mouth shut. He studied me. But I am not coming tonight, I said. His jaw tightened again. I won't sit at a table because my empty chair would be inconvenient. I won't help the two of you pretend this morning didn't happen. So, you admit you're punishing us. I'm refusing to be used. I asked for your help. And I came. You walked out. After you told me to finish a job for a party where I was no longer welcome, you could have stayed. I'm standing here asking you. You're standing here because everyone will notice. He flinched. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Then he nodded, once, as if something had been confirmed. Vanessa was right. About what? You don't help unless you get to feel important. He walked out. I did not follow him. The railing cap remained on the counter, bright against the dark stone. At 6:07, Caroline texted, Are you parking? At 6:12, Dad? At 6:16, my phone rang. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Where are you? She asked. At home. Why? I'm not coming. A door closed on her end. The party noise faded. Are you sick? No? Then what's going on? Ask Luke. I did. He said you got upset while helping and left. That is one description. What's your description? I don't want to do this during their anniversary dinner. Then you should have answered me before I drove here. I didn't know you were relying on me for transportation. That is not what I mean. I sat at the kitchen table. Vanessa said you refused to finish the railing because she asked for space tonight. She uninvited me after I had been working for 4 hours. Silence. She what? She and Luke decided my presence might be uncomfortable. They adjusted the count. They said you left before anyone could work it out. Luke came over. He asked me to return. Then why didn't you? Because the only reason they changed their minds was that you and your mother would ask where I was. You don't know that. I do. No, Dad, you suspect it. There's a difference. The party noise grew louder. Someone called Caroline's name. I have to go, she said. Mom is asking. Tell her I'm not feeling social. I'm not lying for you. Then tell her the truth. I don't know the truth. She hung up. At 7, Helen called. At 7:20, she called again. I put my phone in the bedroom and closed the door. I ate scrambled eggs at 9. The second steak remained frozen. The next morning, I found a foil-covered plate on my porch, 2 pastries, sliced chicken, roasted vegetables, and a piece of anniversary cake with 4 sugar flowers crushed against the wrapping. No note. At 9:30, Helen walked in without knocking. She set her purse on the kitchen counter and pointed at the foil plate. I brought that. I assumed the mailman had expanded his services. Caroline wanted to bring it. I told her I would. Why? Because she's angry. And you're not? I didn't say that. She took off her coat and draped it over a chair. Underneath, she wore jeans and a gray sweatshirt with the name of Caroline's Hotel printed across the front. Coffee? I asked. No. I poured myself some anyway. Helen saw the railing cap beside the sink and picked it up. What's this? A railing cap. Should I know why it looks guilty? I took it from her and set it back down. Vanessa says you left their porch unsafe. The rail is anchored. It is missing a decorative cap. Luke said you embarrassed him. I left before the guests arrived. He said you made him come over and beg. I did not make him do anything. Caroline said Vanessa removed you from the dinner. She did. Helen pulled out a chair. Sit down. I'm already standing. That posture is not fooling either of us. I sat. She folded her hands on the table. What happened Thursday night? The question surprised me enough that I answered with another. Why Thursday? Because at my dinner, Luke looked like he was trying not to breathe. You looked like you wanted to pull him through a wall, and Vanessa looked like somebody had handed her a glass she was afraid to drop. Something happened before Saturday. I stared into my coffee. Luke called me, I said, and he asked if he could come over. Helen waited. Vanessa opened the car door. Luke apologized to her for calling me. Her face changed. Then she took the phone and told me to stop. Stop what? Being the emergency exit from their marriage. Helen sat back. For one gratifying second, she looked furious. She had no right to take his phone. Thank you. I'm not finished. Of course not. She had no right to take his phone, Helen repeated. And you had no right to spend 4 years letting him use you that way. I stared at her. Letting him use me, calling you after arguments, complaining about his wife, getting comfort from you so he doesn't have to say difficult things to her. I never told him to call. You never told him not to. He is my son. He is a married man. I am aware of his age and tax status. Helen leaned forward. Daniel, do you remember when Luke was deciding whether to leave his first job? That has nothing to do with this. He called you every night for 2 weeks. You made lists. You compared retirement plans. You found 3 other positions before he had told his supervisor he was unhappy. I was helping. Yes, you were magnificent. By the time he made a decision, there was nothing left for him to decide. The coffee tasted bitter. You think Vanessa is right. I think Vanessa has taken a real problem and used it to justify something ugly. I looked at her. She is trying to control his access to you, Helen said. You are trying to prove he still needs you. And Luke is standing between you, agreeing with whoever is currently most likely to leave. I pushed my chair back. That's a neat summary. It isn't neat, it's awful. You weren't on that phone. No, but I was married to you for 28 years. I know what your help can feel like when it comes with a silent expectation that everyone recognize you as the safest person in the room. I never asked for recognition. You don't ask for anything. That's how the debt gets so large. I stood and carried my mug to the sink. Helen's voice softened. Did Luke ever tell you what the argument was about? He said it was about me, and that was enough. What does that mean? It means you stopped asking what he had done. I turned. She stood and picked up her coat. You want the villain to be the woman who took the phone, she said. Maybe she is. But if you make this only about Vanessa, you'll lose him while waiting for him to admit you were right. She left the foil plate on the counter and walked out. I remained beside the sink. The railing cap sat near my hand. I picked it up, opened the junk drawer, and placed it inside among dead batteries, takeout menus, and keys that no longer opened anything. Then I found a clean sheet of paper. I wrote Dear Luke at the top. For 10 minutes, I could not find a second honest line. The second line became, I'm sorry. That sat there by itself for a while. I had spent most of my life believing apologies were strongest when they were specific. Helen used to claim this belief allowed me to delay them until everyone else had forgotten the original offense. I wrote, I'm sorry I made you feel that. Needing me was the price of being close to me. Then I crossed out made you feel. Those 3 words could turn any apology into an accusation if you held them wrong. I tried again. I'm sorry I made being useful so important between us that you may not know whether I want your company or your need. That sounded like something printed on a mug in a therapist's office. I tore up the page. By noon, the wastebasket contained 5 beginnings and 1 entire letter in which I had somehow apologized for helping too much while listing every time my help had been necessary. Even alone, I could turn remorse into an invoice. I made a sandwich, ate it over the sink, and went back to the table. The version I kept began plainly. Luke, I owe you an apology for my part in this. When you came to me with problems, I usually tried to solve them. I told myself that was what a father did. Sometimes I was more interested in being the person who could make things better than I was, in asking whether you wanted my help. I listened when you complained about Vanessa and gave advice without asking what you planned to say to her. That let you leave difficult feelings with me and go home without them. It also let me feel closer to you than I sometimes was. I am sorry for that." I stopped there and flexed my fingers. The hard part came next. An apology can become a bribe if you use it to purchase permission for another paragraph. I wrote it anyway. "I will work on listening, without fixing, and asking without pressing. I will not keep score over canceled Sundays, or expect you to choose me to prove you love me. But I need you to understand something too. Marriage does not mean you should have to apologize for calling your father. I will not take secret calls or help you avoid speaking honestly to your wife. I also will not pretend it is healthy for anyone to decide when you are allowed to reach me. My door is open. That is not a demand that you walk through it. It is simply the truth. Dad." I read it until the words stopped behaving like language. Then I folded it, put it in an envelope, and drove to the post office before I could add footnotes. The woman behind the counter weighed it. "1 stamp," she said. "I know." "Then why did you bring it to the counter?" "I wanted professional confirmation." She looked at the envelope. "Love letter?" "Something like that. Those usually need more postage. I bought a book of stamps I didn't need. For 3 days, nothing happened. I did not call Luke. I did not ask Caroline whether she had heard from him. When Helen called Tuesday, I waited 11 full minutes before mentioning the letter. "That's almost growth," she said. "I can hang up. There he is. You told me to apologize." "No, I told you to look at your part. An apology was your idea." "You're welcome." She laughed. I was glad she did, although I refused to reward it. On Thursday, Luke sent a message. "Got your letter." I held the phone over the kitchen table and waited for a second bubble. Nothing came. After 10 minutes, I wrote, "Thank you for reading it." He responded with a thumbs up. I considered calling Caroline to ask whether a thumbs up meant emotional forgiveness or possession of a thumb. I decided against it. The following Sunday, I grilled the second steak. It had been frozen long enough that a gray rim appeared around one edge, but it tasted fine. I ate at the workbench with the garage door open. Cars moved along the road beyond the yard. None slowed. The old radio lost the game in the 7th inning. I slapped the side. "You know," a voice behind me said, "that might be why it doesn't work." I turned so fast the fork fell from my hand. Luke stood at the edge of the driveway. He wore jeans and a dark jacket, both hands in his pockets. No car was visible. "How did you get here?" "I parked down the road." "Why?" "I wanted to walk." "There's no sidewalk," I noticed. He looked at the empty paper plate on the bench. Was that the other steak? It was becoming archaeological. He stepped into the garage. His eyes went to the birdhouse above the tool chest, then to the radio, then everywhere except me. "You want coffee?" I asked. "It's 5 in the afternoon." "So?" "Sure." Inside, I started a fresh pot. Luke sat at the kitchen table and turned the blank envelope from my electric bill in a slow circle. "Did you tell Vanessa you were coming?" I asked. "Yes, I measured coffee grounds." "What did she say?" "She said it was my decision." "That sounds healthy." He glanced at me. "I'm sorry," I said. "That was unnecessary." "It wasn't wrong." I poured water into the machine. He kept turning the envelope. The letter made her angry. It wasn't addressed to her. She's in it. So is your mother, technically. I mentioned canceled Sundays. She thinks you're trying to make me question our marriage. I think you're already questioning it. I came here because you said you'd listen. I sat across from him. All right. He waited. I waited too. It was remarkable how quickly listening began to feel like a medical procedure. Finally, he said, the argument Thursday started because Vanessa wanted us to go to Charlotte after the anniversary. I said nothing. Her friends Madison and Eric moved there last year. You heard her mention them at Mom's dinner. I nodded. She wanted to stay a week. Look around. Look around for what? His eyebrows lifted. I'm listening, I said. That was a question. Jobs, neighborhoods, just possibilities. Do you want to move? He stared at the envelope. That question again. It seems connected. She's unhappy here. What about you? Dad? Sorry. The coffee machine hissed behind me. He went on. I told her I couldn't take a week off with no notice. She said I could if I wanted to. I said we had plans Sunday. With me? We hadn't made plans. I looked at him. I was going to call, he said. I thought after Mom's dinner, maybe we could have coffee. Vanessa said I was using you as an excuse not to go. Were you? He looked surprised. I don't know, he said. That sounds possible? You think she was right? I think you were planning to come here without asking me. and maybe it was easier to say you had plans than to say you didn't want Charlotte. He leaned back. Well, he said, the letter wasn't completely dishonest. The coffee machine clicked off. I poured 2 cups. I left his black because that was how he used to take it, then remembered he had started adding cream after marrying Vanessa. I set both the cup and the carton in front of him. He added cream. We argued at the house, he said, then in the car. I was supposed to pick up some things for the anniversary. I told her I needed air, and she followed you. I left her at the shopping center. She got a ride. To the pharmacy? He nodded. I was sitting there trying to decide whether to come here. What were you afraid would happen if you did? She'd say I proved her right, and if you didn't. I'd go home. He said it as if home were not a place but a verdict. I wrapped both hands around my cup. Has she ever stopped you from leaving? No. Threatened you? No. Are you afraid of her? His eyes flashed. I knew you'd do this. Do what? Try to turn it into something it isn't. I asked 3 questions. You're making her sound abusive. I didn't use that word. You didn't have to. I sat back. He pushed the envelope away. Vanessa isn't some monster. She's scared too. Of me, of being married to somebody who can't make a decision without checking whether everyone will still love him afterward. That reached places anger could not. He rubbed his palms against his jeans. She says, I disappear when there's conflict, not physically. I just agree, apologize, wait until she calms down, then call you or Mom or Caroline and say, I got pushed into something. Do you? Yes. The honesty was so direct I almost interrupted it. He looked toward the window. And then everybody decides Vanessa is controlling. Maybe she is, sometimes. But I help make her that way. I tell her something is fine until it isn't. I let her make the decision, then punish her for making it. I thought of Helen ordering the book-shaped cake because no one had refused firmly enough to stop her. What do you want me to do? I asked. Stop asking me what I want like there's a correct answer. All right. And don't tell Caroline about the phone. I haven't. Mom knows. She figured out something happened. I told her. He looked disappointed. She's my mother, he said. I know who your mother is. The corner of his mouth moved. Then his phone buzzed on the table. He looked at the screen. Vanessa? I asked. He turned it face down. You don't have to answer, I said. Yes, I do. He picked it up and walked into the living room. Hey, he said quietly. No, I'm still here. A pause. I said I'd be an hour. Another pause. I know what time it is. He stood beside the framed photograph Caroline had given me, his back turned. I could see his shoulders rising as Vanessa spoke. Okay, he said. I'm leaving. When he returned, he did not sit down. I should go. You've been here 40 minutes. I know. I kept my voice even. Did she ask you to leave? His expression closed. I don't want to answer that. Then don't. He picked up his jacket from the chair. At the door, he paused. You said no secret calls? Yes. I told her I was coming. Good. She told me to do what I needed to do. Also good. But now you're making a face. I almost denied it. Instead, I said, I'm trying to learn what my face does. He looked down at the doormat. I don't want to choose between you. I'm not asking you to. Every time I leave this house, it feels like I am. He stepped outside. I followed as far as the porch. Luke, he turned. I'm glad you came. For once, I did not add anything. He nodded and walked toward his car. When he reached the road, he took out his phone. Even from a distance, I could see him hesitate before answering it. I watched until Luke's taillights disappeared beyond the bend. His coffee sat half-finished on the kitchen table. A pale skin had formed across the top. I poured it out, rinsed the cup, then stood there wondering if rinsing a cup counted as fixing something. The next afternoon, Caroline called while I was changing the oil in the lawnmower. Are you busy? I'm underneath a machine. Should I call an ambulance or give you 5 minutes? The mower is 18 inches tall. You found ways to injure yourself with less. I rolled out from beneath it. What do you need? To come over. That is not generally something I need. I'm serious. So am I. Are you in trouble? No. Is your mother? No. Is Luke? She paused. I'll be there in 20 minutes, she said. She arrived in 14, wearing her hotel name tag and carrying a brown paper bag. I brought sandwiches, she announced. That doesn't make entering without an invitation legal. You open the door, under sandwich-related false pretenses. We ate at the garage workbench. Caroline had brought roast beef for me and some grilled vegetable arrangement for herself. She removed the top piece of bread and studied the inside. Why order a sandwich if you don't trust it? I asked. I trust nothing with mayonnaise. Then you have larger issues than the family. She put the bread back. For several minutes she asked about the mower, the weather, and whether I had called a man about sealing the driveway. Caroline inherited discomfort from both parents, but improved it by scheduling around it. Finally, she wiped her fingers and said, Vanessa called me. I assumed this wasn't about asphalt. She's worried. About me? About Luke. I folded the sandwich paper. She thinks he's getting pulled in 2 directions. I have not pulled him anywhere. You wrote him a letter. He told you? Vanessa did, of course. She said you apologized for interfering in their marriage, then added a warning that she was isolating him. That's not what I wrote. Then what did you write? A letter to Luke. Caroline's eyes narrowed. You know, privacy is not the same thing as secrecy. Did Vanessa give you that sentence? No. Mom did. That sounds more likely. She picked a piece of lettuce from the paper. Vanessa says you've been keeping track of every time Luke cancels on you. I admitted that I remember. She says you made him feel guilty for moving on with his life. I apologized for that. She says the apology was manipulative. Then I have completed the full circle. I'm wrong, I apologize for being wrong, and the apology is wrong. Caroline looked irritated. Can you stop trying to win for a second? I didn't invite you here to read charges. I invited myself because everyone keeps giving me pieces and expecting me to build a normal family out of them. The old radio murmured behind us. A caller was complaining about the Pirates' bullpen with more personal betrayal than the subject required. Did Luke tell you about Thursday night? I asked. The Thursday before Mom's birthday? I nodded. He said they had a fight. He called me from his car. He asked to come over. Then Vanessa arrived. Caroline waited. Luke apologized to her for calling me. She took his phone and told me to stop being his emergency exit. The lettuce remained between Caroline's fingers. She took his phone? Yes. What does that mean? It means I was talking to Vanessa and then I wasn't talking to anybody. I mean, did she grab it? I heard a rustle. I don't know whether he handed it to her. Caroline set the lettuce down. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have done exactly what you're doing now. What am I doing? Getting involved. I was already involved. They discussed your letter with me. That was their choice. And leaving me to walk into that anniversary dinner with no idea why you were absent was yours. She was right. I disliked the speed at which this had become common. I should have told you I wasn't going, I said. Yes, I'm sorry. You don't get bonus points for fast apologies now. I wasn't asking for any. Her face softened despite her efforts. Did you ask Luke why he apologized? He says they had an agreement not to call other people during arguments. That isn't insane. No. Mom calls me during arguments. Your mother calls cashiers during arguments. I'm saying I understand the rule. So do I. I don't understand asking permission to talk to your own father afterward. Caroline stared toward the open garage door. Vanessa said Luke came here Sunday. He did. Did you talk about her? We talked about him. That sounds like yes. He admitted he avoids conflict. He also said she controls things sometimes. His word? Mine? She looked at me. I'm trying not to make her the entire problem, I said. That must be exhausting for you. Immensely. Caroline pushed the rest of her sandwich away. I'm having people over Sunday for the game. People, family, Mom, Luke, Vanessa, you. That is not people. That is a tribunal with snacks. You're coming. Was that a question? No. Then I'll consider it. She stood and kissed the top of my head, which I considered an abusive height. At the driveway she turned. If Luke looks at you for an answer, don't give him one. I'm not sure what that means. Neither am I, she said. But I think you do it. Sunday was sunny enough for Caroline to open the balcony doors. The game played on her television, although nobody watched closely except Dean, Helen's neighbor's partner, who had somehow been invited despite Ruth visiting her sister in Erie. Helen brought spinach dip. Vanessa brought wine. I brought nothing because Caroline's message said, Dad, for once, please bring only yourself. When I arrived, she inspected my empty hands. See, I said, growth. You left something in the truck, didn't you? Paper towels. She closed her eyes. Of course. Luke and Vanessa arrived together 20 minutes later. She kissed Caroline, hugged Helen, and gave me a careful smile. "Hi, Daniel, Vanessa." Luke nodded at me. "Hey." Coffee was still drinkable, I told him. He smiled. "Barely." Vanessa looked between us. "I heard you two had a nice talk." "It was all right," Luke said. "All right is high praise in this family," Helen told her. We settled around the television. Caroline had arranged food on the kitchen island with little signs identifying everything, as if hummus might be traveling under an alias. During the second quarter, Vanessa said, "We booked Charlotte." The announcement landed in a gap between commercials. Caroline picked up the remote and lowered the volume. "Booked what?" "Our trip," Vanessa said. "Next month. 6 nights." Luke was looking at his beer. "I thought you couldn't take the time," I said, then regretted it. "I worked it out," he answered. Vanessa touched his knee. "He has more vacation than he realizes." "Imagine that," Helen said lightly. "A hidden fortune of paid leave." I looked at her. She gave me the smallest warning with her eyes. Caroline asked, "Are you staying with Madison?" 3 nights, then a hotel downtown so we can get a feel for things." "What things?" Vanessa smiled. "Life there." Luke drank his beer. I said nothing. Vanessa turned toward me. "No opinion?" The room became interested in the game. "I haven't been asked for one. You usually don't wait." "Vanessa," Luke said. "What?" "I'm joking." "I hope you have a good trip," I said. Her smile sharpened. That sounded painful. "I'm working on my face." Luke looked at me, startled. Then he laughed. It was a small laugh, but Vanessa removed her hand from his knee. During halftime, Caroline asked Luke whether he wanted to see the new shelves she had installed in her storage closet. I nearly corrected her mounting hardware from across the room, caught Helen watching me, and put another cracker in my mouth. A minute later, I saw Caroline and Luke through the kitchen doorway. She was speaking. He looked toward the living room before answering. Not toward me, toward Vanessa. Caroline noticed. Her expression did not change, but she moved closer to block his line of sight. Vanessa stood almost immediately. "Luke, they're showing the 4th down replay." He returned to the living room. Caroline stayed in the kitchen for several seconds. When the game ended, we all gathered coats and leftovers. Vanessa thanked Caroline 3 times, which meant she was angry about something. Luke followed me into the hall. "Can I walk you down?" "I know where the stairs are. I need air." We descended together. Outside, the late afternoon had turned cold. I unlocked my truck but did not open the door. "What happened in the kitchen?" I asked. Caroline wanted to know if the trip was my idea. "What did you tell her? That it was ours." "Was it?" He kicked at a pebble near the curb. "You said you weren't going to press. I asked what you told Caroline. You were sitting there like a statue. At the game, when Vanessa mentioned Charlotte, you told me to stop making every decision a test. I didn't expect you to have no reaction." I did have one. "What?" I put my keys in my pocket. "You want me to object so you won't have to." His head came up. "I'm not going to do that," I said. "If you don't want Charlotte, you tell your wife. If you do want it, go and enjoy the weather. It's a trip. All right, she's not asking me to move." I didn't say she was. Caroline did. That explained the kitchen. What did she say? She asked why we needed 6 days to look at a place if we were only visiting. A car passed slowly, music thumping through closed windows. Luke folded his arms. "Vanessa hates her job," he said. "Madison says there are better opportunities down there. For Vanessa? For both of us? Do you hate your job?" "No." "Then that's information." He gave me an impatient look. "People move for their spouses. They do. You moved for Mom once, from Monroeville to Murraysville. I could still find my old house without stopping for gas. It's not that far. Then why are you defending a move nobody proposed?" He looked back toward Caroline's building. The front door had opened. Vanessa stood inside the glass vestibule with Luke's coat folded over one arm. He had come downstairs without it. "She's waiting," he said. "I can see that." Luke took 2 steps toward the entrance, then stopped. "She wants to start looking at houses while we're there." There was the sentence. Not a move, not yet. Just a door someone had already measured. "What do you want?" I asked. His laugh held no humor. "You really don't know how to ask anything else." "No," I said, "but I'm learning not to answer it for you." Vanessa pushed open the building door. "You forgot your coat," she called. Luke walked toward her. She held it out, and he slipped his arms into the sleeves while she kept hold of the collar. For a moment, he stood facing me with her hands at the back of his neck. Then she turned him around and smoothed the shoulders. They drove away with Vanessa at the wheel. Caroline came outside before I had started my truck. "Did he tell you?" she asked. "About the houses?" Her mouth tightened. "So he did. He said Vanessa wants to look. She told me they were keeping an open mind." Luke looked at her before agreeing. "I saw. He does that a lot." I leaned against the truck door. "You've known him 39 years. He has always looked at the nearest person before giving an opinion." "No, he used to look at the floor." "That's supposed to make me feel better?" She folded her arms against the cold. I asked if he wanted to move. He said the trip was their decision. Then Vanessa called him back into the room, like he'd wandered away in a store. "Don't turn one moment into a diagnosis." She looked at me. "That's rich." "Yes, learn from my mistakes." "What do you want me to do?" "Nothing. Your favorite family strategy. I mean it. Don't question Vanessa. Don't call Luke and push him. Don't create a committee. So, we watch, we stay available." That sounds like watching with better branding. It may be. Caroline shoved her hands into her coat pockets. "What if they move? Then they move. You don't believe that?" I didn't say I'd like it. She studied me, perhaps waiting for the rest of my reaction. I opened the truck door. "Dad." "What?" He looked scared. "I know." The next evening, Vanessa called me. I was in the garage sorting drill bits by size, an activity Helen claimed proved retirement could become a medical condition. "Am I interrupting?" Vanessa asked. "No. Luke said he spoke with you outside Caroline's. We talked. He was upset afterward. I didn't realize. He doesn't always show it to you. That was probably true." I put down the bit in my hand. "What can I do for you, Vanessa? I want to clear something up before this gets larger." "What gets larger?" "Charlotte." I sat on the stool. "It's a vacation," she continued. "Madison and Eric are excited to show us around. Yes, we may look at neighborhoods. People visit open houses for fun all the time. No one I know? You attend hardware store sales for fun. Fair." Her laugh came through before she could hold it back. For half a second, we were two people. Then she said, "I'm not dragging Luke away from his family. I didn't say you were. You made your feelings clear. I wished you a good trip. You sounded like you were blessing a military deployment. I told you I'm working on my face. This isn't funny, Daniel." "No." I waited. She let out a slow breath. "I'm unhappy here. With the weather, with my work, with our social life, with feeling like I joined a family that has already assigned me a role." "What role?" "The woman who stole Luke." I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "I don't think you stole him. You don't have to say it. Every missed Sunday becomes a quiet tragedy. Every holiday at my family's house requires negotiations. When Luke spends an afternoon with you, he comes home lighter. When he spends an afternoon with me, you act as though he served a sentence. That's not fair. No, it isn't fair." There was anger in her voice, but not the polished anger she used at dinners. This was rougher. "I'm not good at hiding when I miss him," I said. "You don't hide anything. You display silence and make everyone interpret it." Helen could have written the sentence. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. "Tell him it's all right to consider moving." I sat very still. "Has he said it isn't?" "He worries about leaving you and Helen and Caroline. That isn't the same as asking permission. It is for Luke. Then you're asking me to give it. I'm asking you not to use his guilt." "I have told him I won't." "He doesn't believe you." "Do you?" She did not answer. I picked up the drill bit and rolled it between my fingers. "If Luke wants to move to Charlotte," I said, "I will miss him. I will not punish him. I will not tell him he has betrayed me." "Can you tell him that?" "Yes." Her voice softened. "Thank you. But I will not tell him he wants to move." The softness disappeared. "No one is asking you to. You called because he hasn't agreed with you. I called because your influence is part of why he can't make a decision. And you want to borrow it. That's not what this is. It is exactly what this is." She became quiet. I could hear something faint behind her. Running water, then a cabinet closing. "Is Luke home?" I asked. "He's taking a shower. Does he know you called me?" "I don't need permission to make a phone call." The answer was so sharp and so perfect that neither of us spoke. Finally, I said, "No, you don't." She hung up. Luke called 20 minutes later. "What did you say to her?" "I told her if you want to move, I won't punish you. She's crying. I also told her I wouldn't persuade you. Why does everything with you have to become a line in the sand? Because she called me to influence your decision. She called to make peace. She asked me to tell you it was all right to move. It is all right. Then tell her that. He went silent. I closed the drill case. Did you want to go to Charlotte for 6 days? I asked. We're going. That's not what I asked. And there it is. What? The question where every answer exposes me. I don't know another kind. Try not asking. All right. That's it. You told me not to ask. He made an exasperated sound. I walked to the garage door and looked into the dark yard. Luke, she was upset before she called me. You don't know that. She called while you were in the shower. She asked me to help convince you. When I refused, she cried, and now you're calling to hold me responsible. I'm not holding you responsible. What are you doing? I don't know. There it was again, the only answer he trusted. I lowered my voice. Did she tell you what we said? Yes. All of it? She said you accused her of manipulating you. I said she wanted to borrow my influence. That sounds like you. It was me. I said it. His breathing changed. Some of the fight left it. I have to go, he said. Okay, don't call her again. She called me. You know what I mean. I really don't. He hung up. They left for Charlotte on a Monday morning. I knew because Vanessa posted a photograph in the family message thread from the airport. She and Luke held paper coffee cups beneath a sign pointing toward their gate. Caroline responded with a heart. Helen wrote, "Have fun and wear sunscreen." I typed, "Safe travels." Luke reacted with a thumbs up. At 10:30 that night, he sent me a photograph privately. A wide wooden porch curved around a pale blue house surrounded by tall trees. Vanessa likes this one. I enlarged the picture. The left side of the porch sagged noticeably near the steps. I wrote, "Rail needs work." He replied, "Don't tell the realtor." Then, a minute later, "It's strange here." "Good strange or bad strange?" I typed. I looked at the question before sending it. Then I erased it and wrote, "I'm here if you want to tell me about it." He did not respond. The next afternoon, Vanessa posted pictures from a restaurant, a greenway, and a rooftop bar. Luke appeared in 2 of them, smiling. In the third, he stood behind Madison and Eric with one hand in his pocket, looking towards something outside the frame. I did not assign meaning to it. I tried not to. On Thursday, Luke called while I was buying groceries. "How's Charlotte?" I asked. "Warm." "Mosquitoes?" Dean was right. I put a carton of eggs in my basket. "What are you doing?" "Standing near dairy." He laughed. I meant generally. Trying to decide whether yogurt is food or a long-running prank. Dad. "I'm grocery shopping. Vanessa and Madison are at a spa. Eric's working." "So you called me." I had 20 minutes. The old part of me wanted to say, "Only 20?" I picked up a container of yogurt and read the label. "How's the trip?" I asked. "It's nice." "That's good. The neighborhoods are nice." "All right. My work has an office down here." I waited. "I could probably transfer," he said. "Would you want to?" He sighed. "Sorry," I said. "Reflex?" "No. It's fine." A woman reached around me for the yogurt I was blocking. I moved aside. Luke said, "Vanessa thinks I'm afraid to start over." "Are you?" "I'm afraid I'll move and still be the same person." There was nothing useful I could say that did not sound like advice. So I said, "I hear you." He was quiet for so long I checked the screen. "You still there?" I asked. "Yeah. You want me to say something else?" "No. I'm just not used to that being the end." "Neither am I." He laughed softly. Someone called his name in the background. "I have to go." "All right. Dad?" "Yes. Don't tell Mom or Caroline about the transfer. I won't." "Thanks." After they returned, I heard nothing from Luke for 11 days. Helen invited everyone to dinner on the second Saturday of October. She had moved into a small townhouse after the divorce, and although she hosted Caroline regularly, she rarely invited all of us at once. Her kitchen table seated 4 comfortably and 6 if nobody had elbows. When I asked what the occasion was, she said, "I own plates." That was as much explanation as I got. I arrived last, so no one could accuse me of centering a candle. Luke and Vanessa were already seated. Caroline stood at the counter opening wine. Helen was carrying a casserole dish with both hands. "Look who has discovered lateness," she said. "It's 6:02. I was worried retirement had ended. Vanessa wore a red blouse and an expression of carefully contained excitement. Luke's face gave me nothing. During dinner, we discussed Caroline's hotel, Helen's neighbor's new fence, and whether Dean had exaggerated the North Carolina mosquitoes. Vanessa barely touched her food. When Helen brought out coffee, Vanessa placed one hand over Luke's. "We have news," she said. Luke looked at her. Not at me, not at Caroline, at her. Vanessa smiled around the table. "We've decided to move to Charlotte." Helen set the coffee pot down. Caroline's wineglass stopped halfway to her mouth. I looked at Luke. Vanessa kept her hand over his. Her fingers were spread, the red polish on her nails matching her blouse. Luke's hand lay flat beneath hers. "That is news," Helen said. Caroline lowered her glass. "When?" "We're thinking early spring," Vanessa answered. "Nothing crazy. We want time to do it properly." "We haven't set a date," Luke said. "No, but March makes the most sense." Luke glanced at her. "We said, maybe March." "Right, maybe March." Vanessa squeezed his hand and turned back to us. "Luke's company has an office there, so a transfer should be simple. I've already found several positions that are a better fit for me. We love the area, and Madison says the market is only getting more competitive." "What market?" Helen asked. "Houses." The word made the room smaller. Vanessa continued quickly. "We wouldn't buy immediately. We'd probably rent for 6 months and learn the neighborhoods. The South Side has some beautiful places, though." Caroline looked at Luke. "You're transferring?" "I haven't applied." "But you talked to someone," Vanessa said. "I asked how it works, and they said it was possible." Helen sat down slowly. "Well, that's exciting." It sounded like something she had selected from a shelf because all the honest reactions were breakable. Caroline said, "Congratulations." She did not sound convincing either. Vanessa smiled at them. "Thank you. We know it's a change, but it's the right one." Luke picked up his spoon and stirred coffee that had no sugar in it. I waited for him to look at me. He didn't. "Is that what you want, son?" I asked. Vanessa's smile vanished. Luke's spoon stopped. "Daniel," she said, "please." I asked him a question. "And you know exactly what that question does." Caroline set down her glass. Helen said my name, softly enough to be either warning or encouragement. Luke stared into the coffee. "We talked about it," he said. "Charlotte makes sense. That was the safe answer. It had facts in it. Offices, weather, houses, friends. No person could be blamed for sense." Vanessa leaned back slightly, relief passing through her shoulders. I could have let it go. I knew that. Instead, I said, "I didn't ask if it made sense." Vanessa pushed her chair away from the table. "This is unbelievable." Luke looked up. He asked me. "He is turning our announcement into a loyalty test." "I'm not," I said. "You waited until we were sitting in front of his mother and sister to challenge him." I asked one question. "You asked the only question you know he cannot answer without feeling that he has betrayed someone." Luke pulled his hand from beneath hers. "I can answer it." We all turned toward him. Vanessa's anger shifted. It did not disappear. It became alert. Luke looked first at Helen, then Caroline, then me. Finally, he looked at his wife. "I don't want to move to Charlotte." No one breathed correctly after that. Vanessa's face went pale. "What? I don't want to move." "Then why did you agree?" "I didn't. You said we should look into the transfer. I said I would find out whether one was possible. You toured houses with me. You booked the appointments. And you came." "Yes, you talked about March." "You talked about March. I said it would be easier than January." Vanessa stared at him. "You let me announce this. I didn't know you were going to. I told you at home that we should share the news tonight. You said you wanted to talk about Charlotte. And you said fine." Luke gave a short, broken laugh. "I say fine to everything. That is not my fault. No, it's mine." The answer stopped her for half a second. Luke gripped the edge of the table. "I should have said no before we got on the plane. I should have said no at Madison's house. I should have said no when we drove through neighborhoods for 6 hours and you talked about where our furniture would go. You said you liked the blue house. I liked the porch. I almost spoke about the railing." Even under those circumstances, the thought arrived. I hated myself a little for it. Vanessa looked around the table as if we had all conspired to place her there. "So, this is what happens?" she asked. Daniel decides to become emotionally enlightened. Caroline starts inspecting our conversations. And suddenly you find your voice? Caroline sat straighter. I don't, Luke said. She stopped. He turned to Vanessa. This isn't about them. It is always about them. No, it's about what I do when you want something. What you do is agree, I disappear. You participate in your own life, Luke. You book flights. You tour houses. You call your office. Then the second your father looks wounded, you pretend I carried you there unconscious. I don't look wounded, I said. Every face turned toward me. Helen closed her eyes. Daniel. Sorry. Luke stood. I'm not blaming you for Charlotte. You just humiliated me in front of your family. I'm telling the truth in front of my family because I couldn't tell it alone. Vanessa's eyes filled, but her voice remained steady. You didn't try. I tried in the car. You left me at a shopping center. I said I didn't want to go. You said you needed time. I called my dad because I didn't know where else to go. And I apologized to you like I had done something dirty. Helen looked at Vanessa. Caroline's hand moved to her mouth. Vanessa's cheeks flushed. You called him to get back up. Maybe I did. The admission took some force from her. Luke continued. Maybe I wanted him to tell me you were wrong because I didn't have the nerve to say it. That's not healthy, I know that. But taking the phone and deciding when I'm allowed to talk to him isn't healthy either. I did not decide when you were allowed to talk to him. You told me I had to stop calling him about us. You agreed. I agree to everything. His voice struck the walls. We went still. Luke looked shocked by the sound of himself. Vanessa wiped beneath one eye with the side of her finger. You want me to apologize because you don't mean the words you say? No. Then what do you want? He looked at her. I want you to notice when yes is the only answer you'll live with. The anger left her face. What replaced it was worse. You think I don't let you exist. I think every relationship I have becomes a threat to ours. That is something your father put in your head. No. He put plenty in my head. That wasn't one of them. She looked at me then, and the pain in her expression had nothing polished about it. You got what you wanted. No, I said. You asked your question. He chose. I didn't ask him to choose. Stop saying that. She stood so quickly her chair struck the wall. Helen rose. Vanessa, please don't drive upset. I'm not upset. It was the least believable sentence spoken all evening. She picked up her purse from the sideboard. Luke moved after her. Vanessa, don't. We need to talk. Hear? Is there anything else you'd like your family to hear? No. Then enjoy dessert. She walked out. Luke stood near the front door. Caroline began. Do you want me to? No, he said. He grabbed his coat. Luke, I said. He turned on me. Not now. I nodded. He left. The front door closed, and the five-place table became too large for the four of us remaining. Helen sat down first. Caroline stared at the door. Should somebody go after them? No, I said. She rounded on me. You don't get to decide that too. He followed his wife. Let him. After you blew up their marriage over coffee. I asked him what he wanted. At the table, she said, in front of everyone. You asked him in the kitchen last week. That was private. So was this. We are his family. Helen reached for the coffee pot and filled her cup, although it was already full. You knew, didn't you? Caroline asked me. You knew he didn't want to move. He said he was afraid he'd move and still be the same person. And you saved that for tonight? I didn't save anything. I haven't spoken to him since Charlotte. Caroline stood and carried her plate to the sink. Helen said, Sit down, Daniel. I'm sitting. Then stop looking like you're about to leave. I looked at the closed door. Do you think I caused that? I asked. No, Helen said. I think you lit a match in a room where they had both been smelling gas for years. That sounds like yes. It sounds like everyone should stop pretending one sentence created the room. Caroline turned from the sink. Vanessa wasn't wrong about him agreeing. No, I said. She wasn't wrong about you either. I know. The answer irritated her more than an argument would have. Helen cut 3 pieces of pie and put them on plates. No one wants pie, Caroline said. I made it. That has never been the standard. We ate in silence. My phone rang at 11:40 that night. Luke's name lit the bedroom. I answered on the first ring. Where are you? I asked. In my car. Are you safe? Yes. Is Vanessa? She's at home. I sat on the edge of the bed. Do you want to come here? The question left my mouth before I could examine it. Luke breathed out. Yes. All right. No. I waited. If I come there, she'll say this was the point. This isn't about what she says. It has to be a little. I heard a turn signal clicking on his end, although the car did not seem to be moving. I'm going to get a hotel, he said. We'll talk tomorrow when we're calmer. That sounds reasonable. I hate when you say reasonable. I'll try outrageous next time. He made a sound that might have been a laugh. Dad? Yes. Did you ask because you knew? Knew what? That I didn't want to move. I suspected. So you did. I asked because I was tired of watching everyone congratulate a man who looked like he was being sentenced. He was quiet. I should have said it before, he whispered. Yes. You could tell me I did the right thing. I don't know if you did. That surprised both of us. I think you told the truth, I said. What you do with it tomorrow matters more. The turn signals stopped. Good night, Dad. Good night, Luke. He stayed on the line another second. Then he hung up without apologizing for calling. I did not sleep much. At 7:15, Luke sent a message, going home to talk. I wrote, okay. Then I placed the phone on the dresser and walked away before I could offer a script, a ride, breakfast, or the use of my garage as neutral territory. At 8, Caroline called. Have you heard from him? He's going home. To Vanessa? It is where he lives. She called me last night. I sat on the edge of the bed. What did she say? That everyone hates her. Do you? No? Then that should be easy to answer. It wasn't. I waited. Caroline sighed. She really thought they had decided. I believe her. You do? Luke agreed in every way except the one that mattered. That doesn't make her controlling. No. Taking his phone does. She says he handed it to her. That detail landed differently than I expected. Did you ask him? Caroline said. No, I'm not defending it. I just think you imagine her wrestling it away because it fits the story better. I heard a noise. You heard what you were afraid of. I stood and opened the curtains. Morning light spilled across the floor with unnecessary cheer. Anything else? Dad. What? I'm angry at you, but I don't think you were wrong to ask. That is impressively useless. I learned from both of you. She told me Vanessa had cried in her car outside Helen's townhouse for nearly an hour before driving home. Luke had gone to a hotel near the turnpike. Caroline had offered Vanessa her guest room, but Vanessa refused. She said if she left the house, Luke would act like she'd thrown him out. That sounds possible. She also said you've been waiting for their marriage to fail. That is not true. I told her that. I sat down again. Thank you. Don't make me regret it. Luke called that afternoon. His voice sounded scraped thin. We're going to see a counselor, he said. That sounds, don't say reasonable. I was going to say expensive. He laughed once. I'm staying at the hotel a few more nights. Do you need money? No. A place to stay? No. A toothbrush? I can buy a toothbrush. I'm establishing the categories. I don't need anything. That answer usually made me push harder. I could feel the old questions lining up. Did Vanessa apologize? Are you going back? What did she say about Charlotte? Who chose the counselor? When is the appointment? I said. All right. He became quiet. What? I asked. Nothing. You called. I wanted to tell you. I'm glad you did. Another silence. Are you going to ask if I'm leaving her? No. Why not? Do you want me to? I don't know. Then I'm making progress. He laughed again, this time sounding more like himself. At the end of the week, Vanessa came to my house. I was cleaning the grill when her car pulled into the driveway. She remained behind the wheel long enough that I considered going inside. Then the door opened. She wore black trousers and a camel-colored coat. There was no makeup around her eyes, which made her look younger and more tired. I should have called, she said. That hasn't stopped anybody else in this family. She glanced toward the house. Can we talk? I led her into the kitchen. She looked at the table where I had written Luke's letter. Coffee? No, thank you. Water? No. I sat. She remained standing until I pointed at the other chair. This is not easy for me, she said. I assumed. Luke listens to you, not as often as you think, more than he listens to me. That may be true. She folded her hands in her lap. Her wedding ring caught the light. He won't come home. He said you're starting counseling. We had one session. How was it? Humiliating. Then you probably told the truth. She looked at me sharply. That was meant as support, I said. You should work on support. I've been told. She took a breath. The counselor asked Luke what he wanted from me. He said he wanted room to disappoint me. I thought about that. Vanessa watched my face. You like that answer? No, I understand it. He disappoints me all the time. The honesty surprised a laugh out of me. Her mouth twitched, then flattened. I don't mean that cruelly. He forgets things. He avoids things. He says yes to dinner and spends the whole night looking at the clock. He says he likes a restaurant, then tells Caroline he hates it. Do you know what it is like to build a life with someone who makes you responsible for every decision and then quietly resents the life? Yes. She stared at me. I was married to Helen, I said. A reluctant smile appeared. Then she looked down at her hands. I know I can be controlling. It was the first time I had heard her say the word without wrapping it in someone else's accusation. I plan because if I don't plan, Luke waits until the decision is made by weather or closing hours. I answer because he hesitates. I schedule because he says any day is fine. After a while, I stopped asking questions I knew would take him 3 weeks to answer. And when he did answer, I told him why the answer wouldn't work. That is generally how people stop answering. Her eyes flashed. You did the same thing, I know. He brought your opinions home and pretended they were his. When I disagreed, he said, my dad thinks, do you understand what that did? Yes. You were the invisible third person in every argument. I believe you. That startled her more than resistance would have. I owe you an apology, I said. I listened to complaints about you without asking whether he had said any of it to your face. I gave advice that made him feel prepared, but let him avoid being honest. I told myself I was helping him. I wasn't helping your marriage. Her eyes filled again. Thank you, she said. I nodded. Then she said, will you tell him to come home? The request sat between us with all its machinery exposed. No. Her expression closed. You just admitted. I admitted my part. I'm not going to repeat it by carrying your message. He respects you. Then I should respect him enough not to manage his decision. I am not asking you to manage him. I'm asking you to tell him that married people don't live in hotels because of one bad dinner. It wasn't one dinner. Of course you'd say that. You took his phone. He gave it to me. Why? Because I held out my hand. There was the full picture, not a struggle, something quieter. What did you expect him to do? I asked. Tell me no. And when he didn't, I took it. Then you spoke for him. He had already called you to speak for him. We looked at each other. Both things could be true. That was becoming an exhausting feature of my life. Vanessa rubbed her thumb across her ring. I panicked, she said. I knew if he came here, you would tell him I was wrong. You'd make coffee, work in the garage, say 5 calm sentences, and he would return home with that look. What look? Like he had survived me. The words hurt because I could imagine enjoying the comparison. I'm sorry, I said. You already apologized. For that part, I'm sorry again. She stood. He thinks I don't allow him other relationships. Do you? I invite your family to everything. You invited me to work, then removed my chair. Her face tightened. Because you had turned Helen's birthday into an interrogation. I asked my son what happened after he called me in distress. You cornered him in Caroline's kitchen, and you kept calling him out of the room. I knew what you were doing, so did I. We had reached the old circle again. Vanessa picked up her purse. At least tell him I came. I will, if you want. And tell him I want him home. You should tell him. He won't answer. Then write a letter. She gave me a humorless look. Did that work for you? He came for coffee. She walked to the door, then stopped. You think if you stay calm, none of this is your fault? No, I said. I stay calm because when I get angry, I become very certain. Certainty has not served this family well. She studied me. I don't want a husband who needs permission to call his father, she said. I want a husband who doesn't need to call his father every time I make him unhappy. That seems fair. Then why does everyone look at me like I'm holding him hostage? Because when he tried to leave an argument, you followed him, took his phone, and told his father to disappear. He left me at a shopping center. Yes, he does that. He creates a scene, then walks away before anyone sees his part. I believe you. She opened the door. What am I supposed to do with that? I don't know. For once, neither of us asked someone else to decide. She left. Luke stayed at the hotel another 9 days. He and Vanessa attended 2 more counseling sessions. I knew only because he called afterward, usually from his car. I did not ask what happened inside. He offered pieces. Vanessa admitted she used plans to force certainty. Luke admitted he used indecision to avoid responsibility. The counselor asked them to stop discussing Charlotte for a month. Vanessa agreed, then asked whether agreeing meant she was being controlling. Luke laughed during the session, and she did not speak to him for the drive home. "That sounds productive," I said. "You promised not to fix." "I'm not. I'm enjoying from a distance." He moved back home briefly. For 6 days, I heard nothing. On the 7th, he called at 6 in the morning. "I need the truck." I sat up in bed. "Where are we going?" "I found a furnished apartment, month to month." The word apartment woke me fully. "Are you separating? We're taking space. Is that different?" "Right now, yes." "What do you need moved if it's furnished?" "Clothes, my desk, 2 chairs, coffee maker, tools." "No, that feels personal." "Dad." "What time?" We loaded his belongings while Vanessa was at work, not secretly. He had told her. She had placed his clothes in 3 suitcases by the front door. The porch railing cap was still missing. I noticed. I said nothing. Luke carried the coffee maker. I took one of the chairs. The apartment was on the 2nd floor of a building near Monroeville, above a dentist's office. The hallway smelled like paint and somebody else's lunch. Inside, there was a gray sofa, a square table, and artwork selected to offend no living person. "Homie," I said, "it's temporary." We set the chairs beside the window. "Do you want help with the desk?" "Yes." "Do you want advice?" "No." "Excellent." Progress. We assembled it without discussing his marriage. When we finished, Luke opened a suitcase and found that Vanessa had packed only 1 shoe from each of 2 different pairs. He sat on the edge of the bed holding them. "Accident?" I asked. He started laughing. Not because it was funny, because the alternatives were worse. I sat beside him. After a while he said, "I don't know if I'm leaving her." "You don't need to know tonight. It's 10 in the morning. The apartment has depressing curtains. It feels later." He placed the mismatched shoes on the floor. When I left, he stood in the doorway with 1 bare foot and 1 socked foot, looking like a man who had escaped nothing and lost everything anyway. For the first week, Luke called every night. Sometimes he needed something practical. "How do you get the oven to stop beeping?" "I haven't seen your oven. It's an oven." "Then press cancel." "There is no cancel. Every oven has cancel. This one has clear." "Press clear. That feels wrong. Then enjoy the beeping." Sometimes he called because the apartment was too quiet. He would tell me what he had eaten, complain about the dentist's music downstairs, or describe the man across the hall who owned 3 identical gray suits and left every morning carrying no bag. I listened. When Luke said he had spent another counseling session arguing about whether their first counseling session had been productive, I asked if he wanted my opinion. "No," he said. "Good. I don't have one. You always have one. I'm trying it as a lifestyle." By the 2nd week, he called less. I told myself that was healthy. I also checked my phone every hour. Helen came over one afternoon to return a casserole dish that had never belonged to me. "This is Caroline's," I said. "I know." "Then why bring it here?" "I wanted to see your face." "You drove 20 minutes for that?" "I was nearby. You live 12 miles away." She opened the junk drawer without asking and began looking through it. "What are you doing?" "Finding batteries." "They're all dead." "Then why keep them?" "They may recover." She found the railing cap. I wondered where this went. "I told you where it went. You told me what it was. You did not tell me you buried it with takeout menus." She placed it on the counter. "How is Luke?" she asked. "Ask him." "I do? He says he's fine." "That is a family word." "And Vanessa?" "Ask her." I did. I looked at Helen. She said they're trying. "What does that mean?" She didn't say. "You criticize me for questions, then arrive with half an answer. I criticize you for turning questions into crowbars." She picked up the cap and rolled it across her palm. "Caroline thinks Luke should leave. Caroline thinks every difficult event should conclude before checkout time. What do you think?" "I think they loved each other enough to build a life and hurt each other enough to make living in it difficult. That is annoyingly balanced. I've been practicing." She set the cap back down. "You know he may go home." "I know. And if he does, you can't treat it like failure." "I know. You say that with your jaw. I'm working on my face." Helen smiled. Then she looked toward the garage. "Did you ever believe I would come back? After the divorce?" "Yes, for the first year." Why didn't you ask? I thought if you wanted to, you would. I thought if you wanted me to, you would ask. We stood in my kitchen with the results of that logic all around us. Would it have mattered? I asked. Probably not. That's comforting. But we might have stopped using silence as evidence. She pushed the casserole dish toward me. Give that to Caroline. You brought it. And now, it's your journey. Luke and Vanessa kept attending counseling. He spent 2 nights at the house, then returned to the apartment. The next weekend, Vanessa stayed with him there. He did not call me either night. On Monday, he sent a message asking whether I still had the railing cap. I answered, yes. He wrote, V says the exposed bolt is collecting water. I looked at that initial. Not Vanessa. 5. The way he had referred to her before all of us began speaking like witnesses. I put the cap in a padded envelope, then changed my mind. Do you want me to bring it? I wrote. His response came immediately. We want to invite you for dinner. Sunday? I read we several times. What time? 6. No repairs. I wrote, I'll bring the cap. Vanessa opened the door when I arrived. She wore jeans and a blue sweater. Her hair was pulled back, and there were no flowers in the entryway. No catering boxes, no list on the refrigerator. Hi, she said. Hi. I held out the cap. She looked at it, then laughed. Of course you brought it. I was specifically asked. Come in. Luke stood in the kitchen, stirring sauce on the stove. He wore an apron that said, Kiss the cook, although somebody had crossed out kiss with marker and written tip. Caroline, he said when he saw me looking. She improved it. She said it was an economic correction. I placed the cap on the counter. Luke pointed a wooden spoon at me. No fixing. I brought no tools. You have tools in the truck. I have tools in my truck when I go to funerals. Vanessa took 3 plates from the cabinet. He's not exaggerating. Dinner was spaghetti with a sauce Luke had made, garlic bread Vanessa had burned slightly, and a salad from a bag. It was the least staged meal I had ever eaten in their house. For 20 minutes, we discussed ordinary things. The dentist downstairs from Luke's apartment played soft jazz before 8 in the morning. Caroline had accidentally sent a hotel invoice to Helen. The Pirates had traded a pitcher I liked. No one discussed Charlotte. No one used the word boundaries. After dinner, Luke began clearing the table. Vanessa said, Leave it. I can load the dishwasher. Sit down. He looked at her. She added, Please. He sat. Vanessa folded her napkin and placed it beside her plate. I owe you an apology, Daniel. I waited. She looked at Luke, then back at me. I should not have taken the phone that night. Luke's eyes dropped. You handed it to me, she said to him. But I knew you felt like you had to. He gave a small nod. And I should not have spoken to your father the way I did. Thank you, I said. She continued before I could make it easier. I was angry because I thought Luke was calling you to escape a conversation with me. He was. But that did not give me the right to decide the conversation he could have with you. Luke's hand rested near his plate, fingers curled loosely. Vanessa drew a breath. I also should not have let you help with the anniversary dinner after we decided you shouldn't attend. You decided, Luke said. She turned to him. We're not doing that. You said we discussed it. I didn't agree. Her face tightened. Then she caught herself. You're right, she said. I decided. You failed to object, and I treated that as agreement. Luke looked almost more unsettled by the correction than he had by the accusation. Vanessa faced me again. I'm sorry. I accept. The words came too quickly. I slowed down. And I'm sorry I let Luke bring complaints about you to me and responded as if I knew your marriage. I didn't encourage him to speak directly to you. Sometimes I liked being the place he came when things were difficult at home. Luke stared at the table. I'm sorry to both of you for that. Vanessa nodded. Thank you. The room remained quiet. No music swelled. No cracked thing pulled itself together. Luke stood and took our plates. This time, Vanessa led him. At the front door, I gave him the railing cap. It belongs here. I'll put it on tomorrow. You need a rubber mallet, Dad. Or a block of wood. I'm not fixing. I'm informing. He slipped the cap into his pocket. Vanessa hugged me. It was brief and awkward, but real. On the drive home, I felt lighter than I had in months. That should have warned me. Relief can make a man confuse an honest evening with a solved life. Luke moved back into the house the following Friday. He kept the apartment for the rest of the month. The counselor suggested they treat returning home as a trial rather than a victory. Luke told me that much, then told me he did not want to discuss the details. I said I understood. 2 Sundays later, he asked if he and Vanessa could come for steaks. I bought 3. Vanessa arrived carrying a bakery pie and a bottle of wine. Luke brought beer with a label featuring a skeleton in a canoe. The charcoal behaved. The steaks came off the grill exactly medium rare. Vanessa sat on the back step with her shoes off, and Luke adjusted the old radio until the game came through. For a while, it was easy. Vanessa asked about the crooked birdhouse. Luke claimed I had sabotaged him by supplying warped wood. I reminded him he had insisted the hole was for a special bird. "What kind?" Vanessa asked. "An embarrassed one," Luke said. She laughed hard enough to spill wine on her jeans. At 4:30, Vanessa looked at her phone. "We should go." Luke was opening another beer. "The game's in the 8th. You said we'd leave by 4:30? I said around 4:30. "No, you said we could stay for 2 hours. Did I sign something?" He meant it as a joke. Vanessa did not smile. "We have things to do at home." "What things? Laundry, food for the week." "The bathroom shelf is still sitting in a box." I looked at the grill and concentrated on scraping it. Luke said, "I want to finish the game." Vanessa lowered her voice. "Can we talk inside?" "No." The word was not loud. It still changed the air. She looked at him. "No, I don't want to go inside and have a private argument because I want to stay another half hour. I'm trying not to involve your father. He's standing 10 feet away." I kept scraping a grill that had become spotless. Vanessa stood and put on her shoes. "This is exactly what we talked about. You make a commitment to me, then change it when you're with him," I said around 4:30. "You are arguing over 30 minutes because saying no feels good now." Luke's beer remained unopened in his hand. "No," he said. "I'm arguing because every preference becomes evidence against me. I asked you to come home with your wife, and I said, I want to finish the game." She looked at me. I raised both hands. "I am not in this. You're always in it." Luke set the beer on the step. He didn't say anything. He doesn't have to. Vanessa's eyes filled. She blinked the tears back angrily. "If you stay, don't come home tonight. Don't do that. I'm not going to sit there wondering when you've decided you're finished making your point. I'm watching baseball. You're choosing him? No, you're turning 30 minutes into a choice." She picked up her purse and walked around the side of the house. Luke remained on the step. A moment later, her car started. He stared at the unopened beer. I turned off the radio. "Don't," he said. "The game's terrible. Leave it on." I turned it back on. Vanessa's car pulled out of the driveway and disappeared. Luke sat without moving through the rest of the 8th inning. During a pitching change, he said, "She apologized." "I know, she meant it. I know, we're both trying. I know that too." He pressed the cold beer bottle against his forehead. "I could have left at 4:30. "Yes." "Do you think I should have? That's not my call." He laughed bitterly. "You really have changed. Some days I hate it." The game ended with a strikeout. Luke set the beer down unopened. "I think I have to go back to the apartment." "Tonight?" He shook his head. "For good." The words sounded too final for the small yard. I sat beside him on the step. He looked toward the road where Vanessa's car had vanished. "I love her," he said. "I know. But I don't know how to love her without becoming someone she has to manage." I waited, and she doesn't know how to love me without managing me. The radio moved into a commercial for gutters. Luke picked at the label on the beer. "I think that was the answer," he said. Neither of us needed to ask what question he meant. The commercial ended, and a man on the radio began explaining why the Pirates had lost, as if grief required statistics. Luke stood. "I should go." "To the apartment?" "Yes." "Do you want me to drive?" "I had 1 beer." "You opened 1 beer." I didn't drink it. I looked at the full bottle on the step. "Then why would I drive?" "Habit." He put on his jacket. At the truck, he stopped with one hand on the door. "I'm going to tell her tomorrow." "Tell her what?" "That I'm moving back out." "You said you thought." "I do think." "Those are different." He looked tired enough to fold. "Don't make me less sure." "I'm not. I'm asking you to use the right word." He glanced toward the road. "I'm moving back out." "All right, you could tell me not to. I could tell you anything. You'd still have to wake up inside your own decision." He nodded, opened the door, then looked back at me. I'm not asking to stay here. I know. That's not because I don't want to. I know that too. He drove away. I went inside and put the third steak in the refrigerator. Vanessa had barely touched it. The pie remained on the kitchen counter with one slice missing. I covered it, washed 3 plates, and did not call anyone. At 9 the next morning, my phone rang. Vanessa. I let it ring once more than necessary before answering. He's leaving, she said. There was no greeting. He told me he planned to. Did you tell him to? No. Did you tell him it was the right thing? No. What did you say? That he had to wake up inside his own decision. What does that even mean? I'm not entirely sure. She made a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. He says he loves me. I believe him. He says that like it excuses this. I don't think it does. He came home this morning and packed another suitcase. He was calm. He said we should keep going to counseling, but not to save the marriage, to end it without destroying each other. I sat at the kitchen table. What do you want me to do, Vanessa? Tell him not to quit. There it was again, but this time it came without strategy. I can't. You mean you won't? Yes. He listens to you. And if I use that to send him back, nothing changes. You win either way. This is not a win. You get your Sundays back. I watch my son leave a woman he loves carrying one shoe from each pair. If that looks like victory to you, I don't know what losing would be. She went quiet. I heard a drawer close on her end. He took the railing cap out of his pocket last night, she said. He put it on the counter. I looked toward my junk drawer. Did he install it? No. Do you want me to? The question escaped before I could stop it. Vanessa laughed through her tears. No, Daniel. I can manage a railing cap. I believe you. Another drawer closed. I meant my apology, she said. I know. So did you, didn't you? Yes. And it still wasn't enough. No. She breathed for a moment. I hate that. So do I. When she hung up, neither of us had been forgiven, blamed, or recruited. It felt less satisfying than all three and more honest. Luke returned to the apartment that afternoon. He and Vanessa kept their counseling appointments. For a while, their separation remained something they described differently depending on the day. Luke called it space. Vanessa called it abandonment. The counselor called it a decision they had already made but were afraid to name. I learned this in fragments, not reports. Luke would come by for coffee and mention that Vanessa wanted to keep the dining table. A week later, he would say she had offered him the table because it reminded her of the anniversary dinner. He accepted it, then changed his mind because his apartment could not hold it without blocking the kitchen. Take the chairs, I suggested. He looked at me. Was that advice? It was geometry. He took one chair. Caroline invited Luke to lunch and came to my house afterward. He's angry with me, she said. Why? I told him I noticed how he checked Vanessa's face before answering. You did notice. He said I was treating him like a victim. Were you? She paced beside the workbench. Maybe. I handed her a cup of coffee. He said everybody is being very understanding now that his marriage is ending. He wants to know where we were while he was helping it end. That sounds like Luke. I apologized. Did you add anything? Only a brief explanation. How brief? 7 minutes. Then you explained the apology to death. She gave me a look. I learned from both of you, she said. I've heard. Helen handled the separation by inviting Vanessa to lunch. When I asked why, she said, because divorce turns everyone into teams if you let it. How was lunch? Sad. Did Vanessa say anything about me? Of course. What? Helen drank her coffee. You're working on not asking questions. Not all questions. She said you were easier to hate before you apologized. That's almost nice. It wasn't. Helen continued inviting Vanessa to lunch every few weeks. Sometimes Vanessa accepted. Luke knew and did not object. Caroline remained in contact too, although she stopped carrying messages in either direction. I did not see Vanessa again for nearly 2 months. She came to the garage on a cold Saturday carrying my blue-handled screwdriver. This was in our kitchen drawer, she said. I have 6 of those. I know. Luke said you wouldn't notice. I noticed. You did not. I noticed spiritually. She smiled. There were moving boxes in the back seat of her car. Charlotte? I asked. She nodded. I accepted a position there. When? I start after New Year's. That's soon. I need soon. I look toward the boxes. Do you need help? No. The answer came quickly but not defensively. I hired movers. Good. She turned the screwdriver in her hand before giving it to me. Luke says you're listening now. I always listened. He says you stopped talking afterward. That part is new. She looked around the garage. I used to hate this room. You were rarely in it. That's why. It was a whole part of him I couldn't enter. You could have. No, I could have stood here. That isn't the same. The red radio played softly behind us. I made him feel that way in our house, she said, like he could stand there but not enter. I did not rush to disagree. She placed the screwdriver on the bench. He made me feel alone too, she added. I believe you. Vanessa studied me, then nodded. Take care of him. He won't appreciate that sentence. No, probably not. He can take care of himself. She smiled faintly. You don't believe that yet. I'm practicing. At her car, she turned back. For what it's worth, I never wanted him to lose you. I know. I wanted him to stop needing you more than he needed me. He didn't need either of us the way we wanted him to. Her eyes filled, but she did not look away. No, she said. He didn't. She drove off with the boxes visible through the rear window. Luke helped Vanessa move to Charlotte. That surprised everyone except Helen. She was his wife, Helen said. A marriage does not become fake because it ends. He flew down with her and stayed 3 days. They unpacked boxes, argued over where to put the coffee maker, and ate dinner with Madison and Eric. On his last night, he and Vanessa sat on the porch of her rental house, where the railing was perfectly solid. Luke told me this afterward at a diner near his apartment. She said she was sorry she couldn't stay here, he said. What did you say? That I was sorry I couldn't go? Was that true? Yes. He stirred cream into his coffee. We loved each other, he said. We just kept asking love to prove itself by losing something. I waited. He looked up. You can say something. I'm sorry. That's all? That's all I have. He nodded. Their divorce moved forward quietly. No one hired an audience. They divided furniture, closed accounts, and argued once over a set of wine glasses neither of them actually wanted. Luke took the glasses, gave them to Caroline, and told her they were her fee for involuntary family coordination. She used them at Helen's next birthday. Luke kept the apartment above the dentist's office. He bought a better sofa and replaced the harmless artwork with a framed photograph he had taken in Charlotte. It showed an empty road under trees after rain. No people, no houses, no decision waiting at the edge. He came to the garage when he wanted company. Sometimes he asked my opinion and ignored it. Sometimes he asked me to listen and caught me tightening my jaw around a solution. You're doing it, he would say. Doing what? Fixing me with your face. I only have the one. He began having Sunday coffee with me again, but not every Sunday. The first time he canceled because he wanted to spend the day alone, he called instead of texting. I'm not coming over, he said. All right. You're disappointed. A little. Are you angry? No. Are you going to buy 2 steaks anyway? They come in packages. He laughed. The following Sunday he came without being asked. After that the rhythm changed, not back to what it had been. Back was no longer available. What we built had more empty space in it, and neither of us rushed to fill every inch. One Sunday in early March, I was making coffee when the phone rang. Luke's name appeared on the screen. I answered. Morning. Hey, Dad. There were voices near him and the hollow sound of an almost empty room. Where are you? At the house. We're finishing the last pickup. Vanessa had returned from Charlotte to sign final papers and collect 2 boxes she had left in the bedroom closet. Luke had gone to help. Someone spoke beside him, Vanessa's voice, faint but recognizable. Luke, can you ask him about the... I'm talking to my dad, Luke said, not sharply, not apologetically. Give me a minute. My hand tightened around the coffee pot. The old sentence came back in reverse. No lowered voice. No sorry. No shame traveling across the line. Luke returned to the phone. Does the garage radio still work? If you hit it. So nothing's changed. Plenty has changed. He was quiet. Then he said, Can I come over when we're done? Do you need help with something? No. Truck? No. Tools? No, Dad. I waited. I miss you, he said. The coffee finished dripping. You never need a reason, I told him. I know. Someone called Vanessa from another room. Luke said he had to go. See you in an hour, he said. Drive carefully. I will." He hung up. I took 2 cups from the cabinet and carried them into the garage. The red radio needed one hard slap before the music came through. I left the door open for him.